Book 7. Beachhead in Latium. Armies gather. In death, Caieta, Aeneas' nurse, you two have granted our shores a fame that never dies. And now your honor preserves your resting place. And if such a glory is any glory at all, your name marks out your bones in the great land of the West. But devout Aeneas now, the last rites performed and the grave mound piled high, once the seas lie calm, sets sail on his journey, puts the port astern. Freshening breezes blow as night comes on, and a full moon speeds their course. Its dancing light strikes sparkles off the waves, and they closely skirt the coasts of Circe's land, where the sun's rich daughter makes her deadly groves resound with her endless song. And deep in her proud halls she kindles fragrant cedar flaring through the night, as her whirring shuttle sweeps her fine-spun loom. From there you could hear the furious growls of lions, bridling at their chains, roaring into the dead of night, the raging of bristly boars and bears caged in their pens, and the looming forms of howling wolves. The men whose shapes the brutal goddess Circe changed with her potent drugs, tricked them out in the hides and look of wild beasts. But to spare the loyal Trojans such a monstrous fate, risking that harbor, touching those lethal shores, Neptune swelled their sails with following winds and gave them a swift escape, speeding them past the churning shoals unharmed. Now the sea was going red with the rays of dawn. From the heavens gold, Aurora shone in a rose-red car. When the wind died down, suddenly every breeze fell flat and the oars struggled against a sluggish leaden swell. But now Aeneas, still at sea, scanning the offing, spots an enormous wood and running through it the Tiber in all its glory. Rapids, whirlpools golden with sand and bursting out to sea. And over it, round it, birds, all kinds, haunting the riverbed and banks, entrance the air with their song and flutter through the trees. Change course, he commands his men. Turn prows to land. And he enters the great shaded river, overjoyed. Now come, Arado. Who were the kings, the tides and times? How stood the old Latin state when that army of intruders first beached their fleet on Italian shores? All that I will unfold. I will recall how the battle first began. And you, goddess, inspire your singer, come. I will tell of horrendous wars, tell of battle lines and princes fired with courage, driven to their deaths, Etruscan battalions, all Hesperia called to arms. A greater tide of events springs up before me now. I launch a great labor. King Latinus, already old, had governed the fields and towns through long years of peace. Faunus' son he was, and the Latian nymphs, Marica, so we hear. Picus was Faunus' father, and Picus boasted you as his sire, great Saturn, you, the founder of the bloodline. Latinus had no son, his one male issue torn from him by the gods' decrees, in the first bloom of youth. One daughter alone was left to preserve the house and royal line, ripe for marriage now, a full-grown woman now. Many suitors sought her all through Latium, all Ausonia too, and the handsomest of the lot was Turnus, strong in his noble birth and breeding. The queen mother burned with a will to wed him to her daughter true, but down from the gods came sign on sign of alarm to block the way. Far in the palace depths there stood a laurel, its foliage sacred, tended with awe for many years. Father Latinus, they say, had found it once himself, building his first stronghold, hallowed it to Phoebus, and named his settlers after the laurel's name, Laurentes. Now sweeping toward this tree from a clear blue sky, a marvel, listen. A squadron of bees came buzzing to high heaven, swarmed in an instant, massed on the tree's crown, and hooking feet together, bent the laurel's leafy branches down. A prophet cries at once, "A stranger, I see him, a whole army of men arriving out of the same quarter, bent on the same goal, to rule our city's heights." What's worse, as the young virgin Lavinia lit the altar with pure torches, flanking her father, look, what horror! Her flowing hair caught fire, her lovely regalia crackled in flames, her regal tresses blazed, her crown blazing, studded with flashing jewels. The next moment the girl was engulfed in a smoky yellow glare, strewing the god of fire's power through the house. That sight was brooded about as a sign of wonder, terror. For Lavinia, prophets sang of a brilliant fame to come. For the people they foretold a long, grueling war. Dismayed by the signs, the king seeks out seeks out the oracle of Faunus, his Vedic father. He consults the grove below Albunia's heights, where the grand woods resound with the holy spring and exhale their dark, deadly fumes. Here all the Italian tribes and all Oenotria's land seek out the oracle's response in hours of doubt. Here the priest, when he brings the sacred gifts and looks for sleep beneath the silent night, stretched out on the hides of slaughtered sheep, will see whole hosts of phantoms, miracles on the wing, hear the voices swarm, engage with the gods in words, and speak with Acheron in Avernus' deepest pools. Here, too, Latinus himself, seeking out responses, slaughtered 100 yearling sheep in the old way, and there he lay ensconced, at rest on fleecy hides, when a sudden voice broke from the grove's depths. Never seek to marry your daughter to a Latin. Put no trust, my son, in a marriage ready-made. Strangers will come to be your sons, and their lifeblood will lift our name to the stars. Their sons as sons will see. Wherever the wheeling sun looks down on the ocean, rising or setting, east or west, the whole earth turned beneath their feet, their rule. This response from Father Faunus, a warning sent in the silent night, Latinus did not seal his lips. Rumor had spread it already, flying far and wide, through Ausonia's towns before the sons of Troy tied up their fleet at the river's green embankments. Now Aeneas, his ranking chiefs and handsome Euryalus stretched out on the grass below the boughs of a tall tree, then set about their meal. Spreading a feast on wheaten cakes, Jove himself impelled them, heaping the plates with Ceres' gifts, her country fruits, and once they devoured all in sight, still not sated, their hunger drove them on to attack the fateful plates themselves, their hands and teeth defiling, ripping into the thin, dry crusts, never sparing a crumb of the flatbread scored in quarters. Suddenly Euryalus shouted, "What, we're even eating our platters now?" Only a joke, and nothing more, but his words, once heard, first spelled an end of troubles. As they first fell from the boy's lips, his father seized upon them, struck by the will of God, and made him hold his peace. And Aeneas cries at once, "Hail to the country owed to me by fate! Hail to you, you faithful household gods of Troy! Here is our home, here is our native land. For my own father, now I remember, Anchises left to me these secret signs of fate. When my son, born to an unknown shore, reduced to iron rations, hunger drives you to eat your own platters, then's the moment, exhausted as you are, to hope for home. There, never forget, your hands must labor to build your first houses, ring them round with mounds. This is the hunger he meant. This is the last trial, the last limit set to our pains of exile. Come, with the first light of the day, our spirits high, let's explore the land. What people hold it? Where are their towns? Scatter out from port on different routes. But now pour cups to Jove, and call on Father Anchises with our prayers. Set out the wine on tables once again." With that, he wreathes his brows with leafy green spray and prays to the spirit of the place, and earth, first of the gods, and nymphs, and rivers still unknown, and then to the night and the rising stars of night. He calls on Jove of Ida, calls the Phrygian mother, both gods in turn, and then his two parents, his mother high above and his father down below. The Almighty Father answered, 3 times over, rending the cloudless sky with claps of thunder, flourishing high in his own hand from heaven's peak, a cloud on fire with rays of gold, with radiance. The rumor spread at once through Trojan ranks that the day had come to build their destined city. Impelled by the great omen, hearts filled with joy, they rushed to refresh the banquet, set out bowls and crowned the wine with wreaths. The next day, when the sun's first torch had flared across the earth, taking different routes they explored the town, the borderlands and coasts these people hold. Here are the pools where Numicus' springs rise, and here is the Tiber River, and here the hardy Latins make their homes. And then Aeneas orders 100 envoys, picked from all ranks, to approach the king's imperial city, bearing an olive branch of Pallas, wound in wool, bearing gifts for the great man, and sue for peace for all the Trojan people. They waste no time, moving out on command, setting a brisk pace. and Aeneas himself lines up his walls with a shallow trench. He starts to work the site, and rings his first settlement on the coast with mounds. Redoubts and ramparts build like an armed camp. Soon his envoys, having covered the distance, sight the Latins as rising roofs and towers and go up under the walls. There before the city, boys and young men in their vibrant pride of strength are training as riders, breaking teams in the whirling dust, bending their tough, lithe bows and hurling honed javelins, full shoulder throws, challenging friends to race or box, when a herald comes riding up ahead of the Trojans, bringing news to the old king's ears. Powerful men in strangers' dresses, they're on their way here now. King Latinus has them summoned into the palace and takes his father's throne amidst them all. August, immense, its 100 columns soaring, the house commanded the city heights. Laurentine Picus' home, with its shuddering grove and ancestral, awesome aura. Here rituals said that kings should receive the scepter, first raise the rods of power. This shrine is their senate, this the site of their sacred banquets. Here the elders slaughtered rams, then sat to dine at an endless line of trestles. Yes, and here, carved in seasoned cedar, rows of statues, rows of the founding forebears. Italus, Father Sabinus, the vintner's figure, still wielding his hooked knife. Old Saturn and Janus's figure facing right and left. All stand in the forecourt, and all the other kings from the start of time, and those who had taken wounds in war, fighting to save their country. Many weapons, too, hang on the hallowed doors, captured chariots, curved axes, crested helmets, enormous bolts from gates, and lances, shields and ramming beaks ripped from the prows of ships. There with the augur's staff sat Picus to the life, girt up in the short robe of state, his left hand holding the sacred buckler. Picus, breaker of horses, whom his bride Circe seized with a blinding passion, struck with a golden wand, and then with magic potions turned him into a bird and splashed his wings with color. So grand, the temple of the gods, where King Latinus assumed his father's throne and summoned the Trojans to him in the halls. As they came marching in, he hailed them first with peaceful words of welcome. Tell us, sons of Dardanus, for we know your city, your stock, and we heard that you were sailing here. What do you search for now? What cause, what craving has sailed your ships to Italy, crossing many seas? Whether you're lost or storms have swept you far off course, dangers that sailors often suffer, facing open ocean. Shielded now by our riverbanks, you ride at anchor. Don't resist our welcome. Never forget the Latins are Saturn's people, fair and just. And not because we are bound by curbs or laws, but kept in check of our own accord, the way of our ancient god. I can recall, though the years have blurred the tale, that Auruncan elders liked to tell how Dardanus sprang up in these fields, then wandered east to the towns of Phrygian Ida, Thracian Samos, called Samothrace these days. From here, his old Tuscan home of Corythus, he set sail, and now a golden palace high in the starry heavens welcome him to a throne, and his altars add a name to the growing roster of the gods. As Latinus ended, Aeneas followed. King, great son of Faunus, no black gales, no stormy seas have swept us here to your country, nor did the stars or landmarks throw us far off course. With a firm resolve and willing hearts, we've reached your city, driven out of our own kingdom, whence the grandest realm the wheeling sun could see from Olympus's heights. Our race takes root from Jove, the sons of Dardanus triumph in Father Jove, of the father's highest stock, our king himself, Aeneas of Troy, who sent us to your gates. How savage the storm that broke from brute Mycenae, scourging Ida's plains. How fate compelled the worlds of Europe and Asia to clash in war. All people know the story, all at the earth's edge, cut off from where rolling ocean pounds them back, and all whom the ruthless sun, in the torrid zone, arching amidst the four cool zones of earth, sunders far from us. Escaping that flood and sailing here over many barren seas, now all we ask is a modest resting place for our fathers as gods, safe haven on your shores. Water, and fresh air that's free for all to breathe. We will never shame your kingdom, nor will your fame be treated lightly, no. Our thanks for your kind work will never die. Nor will Italy once regret embracing Troy in her heart. I swear by Aeneas' fate, by his right hand proved staunch in loyalty, strong in feats of arms, that many nations, many, and don't slight us now because we come with an olive branch held out in desperate pleas, that many people have urged us strongly to join them as allies. But the gods' will spurred us on to seek your land. Their power forced us here. Here Dardanus was born. Here the clear commands of Apollo call him back as the god impels us toward the Tuscan Tiber, the Numicus' sacred springs. Aeneas, moreover, offers you these gifts, remains of his former riches, meager relics plucked from the fires of burning Troy. From this gold goblet, Father Anchises tipped the wine at the high altars. This was Priam's regalia when, in the way he liked to rule, he handed down the laws to his gathered people, the scepter, the holy coronet, and the robes that Trojan women used to weave. As Aeneas ends his appeal, Latinus keeps on looking down at the ground, stock still, only his eyes moving, wrapped in concentration. The brocaded purple stirs him, king that he is, and Priam's scepter too, but he is stirred far more, dwelling long on his daughter's marriage, her wedding bed, and mulling deeply over the vision of old Faunus. So this, he thinks, is the man foretold by fate, that son-in-law from a foreign home, and he's called to share my throne with equal power. His heirs will blaze in courage, their might will sway the world. And at last he speaks out, filled with joy. May the gods speed the plans that we launch here, their own omens too. Your wish will be my command. Trojan, I embrace your gifts. While Latinus rules, you'll never lack rich plowland, bounty great as Troy's. Just let Aeneas, if he needs us so, and press us so to join an alliance and take the name of comrade. Come in person, never shy from the eyes of friends. Let this be part of our peace, to grasp your leader's hand. Take back to your king this answer I give you now. I have a daughter, signs from my father's shrine, and a host of omens from the skies forbid me to wed her to a bridegroom chosen from our race. Our sons-in-law will arrive from foreign shores. That is the fate in store for Latium, so the prophets say. A stranger's blood will raise our name to the stars. This is the one the fates demand. So I believe, and if I can read the future with any truth, I welcome him as ours. On that warm note, Latinus picks out horses from his entire stable, 300 strong, standing sleek in their lofty stalls. At once he orders them led out to the Trojans, one for each, swift with their winging hoofs, decked in embroidered purple saddle blankets, golden medallions dangling from their chests, their trappings gold, pure gold, the bridle bits they champ between their teeth. For absent Aeneas, a chariot, twin chargers too, sprung from immortal stock, their nostrils flaring fire, born of the mixed breed that crafty Circe bred, making off with one of her father's stallions to mate with a mare. Riding high with Latinus' gifts and words, Aeneas' envoys bring back news of peace. But look, the merciless wife of Jove was winging back from Argos, Inachus' city, holding course through the heavens when, from far in the air, as far as Sicily's Cape Pacanus, she spied Aeneas exulting, Trojan ships at anchor. Men building their homes already, trusting the land already, their fleet abandoned now. Juno stopped, transfixed with anguish, then, shaking her head, this exclamation came pouring from her heart. That cursed race I loathe, their Phrygian fate that clashes with my own. So couldn't they die on the plains of Troy? So couldn't they stay defeated in defeat? Couldn't the fires of Troy cremate the Trojans? No. Through the shocks of war, through walls of fire, they found a way. What, am I to believe my power is broken down at last, glutted with hatred? Now I rest in peace? Oh no. When they were flung loose from their native land, I dared to hunt those exiles through the breakers, battle them down the ocean far and wide. I've spent all power of sea and sky against those Trojans. What good have the Syrtes been to me, or Scylla, or gaping Charybdis. The Trojans have settled down, secure in the Tiber channel they so craved, safe from the waves and me. Why, Mars had the force to destroy the giant Lapith race, and Father Jove in person gave old Calydon up to Diana's rage. And for what foul crimes did Calydon and the Lapiths merit so much pain? Oh, but I, powerful Juno, wife of Jove, wretched Juno, I endured it all, left nothing undared. I stoop to any tactic, still he defeats me, Aeneas. But if my forces are not enough, I'm hardly the one to relent. I'll plead for the help I need, wherever it may be. If I cannot sway the heavens, I'll wake the powers of hell. It's not for me to deny him his Latin throne, so be it. Let Lavinia be his bride, an iron fact of fate. But I can drag things out, delay the whole affair. That I can do, and destroy them root and branch, the people of either king. What a price they'll pay for the father and son-in-law's alliance here. Yes, Latin and Trojan blood will be your dowry, princess. Belena, goddess of war, your maid of honor. So, Hecuba is not the only one who spawned a firebrand who brought to birth a wedding torch of a son. Venus' son will be the same, a Paris reborn, a funeral torch to consume a second Troy. That said, the terrible goddess swooped down to the earth and stirred Allecto, mother of sorrows, up from her den, where nightmare furies lurk in hellish darkness. Allecto, a joy to her heart, the griefs of war, rage, and murderous plots, and grisly crimes. Even her father, Pluto, loathes the monster. Even her own infernal sisters loathe her since she shifts into so many forms, their shapes so fierce, the black snakes of her hair that coil so thickly. Juno whips her on with a challenge like a lash. Do me this service, virgin daughter of night, a labor just for me. Don't let my honor, my fame be torn from its high place, or the sons of Aeneas bring Latinus round with their lures of marriage, besieging Italian soil. You can make brothers bound by love gear up for mutual slaughter, demolish a house with hatred, fill it to the roofs with scourges, funeral torches. You have 1,000 names, 1,000 deadly arts. Shake them out of your teeming heart, sunder their pact of peace, sow crops of murderous war. Now at a stroke make young men thirst for weapons, demand them, grasp them, now. In the next breath, bloated with Gorgon venom, Allecto launches out, first for Latium, King Latinus' lofty halls, and squats down at the quiet threshold of Amata, seething with all a woman's anguish, fire and fury, over the Trojans just arrived in Turnus' marriage lost. Allecto flings a snake from her black hair at the queen, and thrusts it down her breast, the very depths of her heart, and the horror drives her mad to bring the whole house down. It glides between her robes and her smooth breasts, but she feels nothing, no shudder of coils, senses nothing at all as the viper breathes its fire through the frenzied queen. The enormous snake becomes the gold choker around her throat, the raveling end of a headband braiding through her hair, writhing over her body. At the fever's first attack, with its clammy poison still stealing over the queen, trickling through her wits and twining her bones with fire, before her mind was seized by the flames within her spirit, she could still speak softly, a mother's tender way, sobbing over her daughter's marriage to a Phrygian. So, Lavinia goes in wedlock to these Trojans, exiles. You, her father, have you no pity for your daughter, none for yourself? No pity for me, her mother? Wait. With the first north wind that lying pirate will desert us, setting sail on the high seas, our virgin as his loot. Isn't that how the Phrygian shepherd breached Sparta and carried Leda's Helen off to the towns of Troy? What of your sacred word, your old affection for your people? Your right hand pledged, time and again, to Turnus, your bloodkin? Now if the Latin people must seek a son of strangers as stock, if that is fixed in stone and your father Faunus' orders press you hard, well then I'd say all countries free of our rule are total strangers. That's what the gods must mean. And Turnus too. Track down the roots of his house, and who are his forebears? Inachus and Acrisius, Mycenae to the core. Desperate appeals, no use. When she sees Latinus steeling himself against her, when the serpent's crazing venom has sunk into her flesh, the fever raging through her entire body, then indeed the unlucky queen, whipped insane by ghastly horrors, raves in her frenzy all throughout the city. Wild as a top, spinning under a twisted whip when boys, obsessed with their play, drive it round an empty court, the whip spinning it round in bigger rings, and the boys hovering over it, spellbound, wonderstruck. The boxwood whirling, whip strokes lashing it into life. Swift as a top, Amata whirls through the midst of cities, people fierce in arms. She even darts into forests, feigning she's in the grip of Bacchus's power, daring a greater outrage, rising to greater fury, hiding her daughter deep in the mountains as leafy woods to rob the Trojans of marriage, delay the marriage torch. Bacchus, hail, she shouts. You alone, she cries. You deserve the virgin. For you, I say, she lifts the thyrsus twined with ivy, dancing in your honor, letting her hair grow long, your sacred locks. Rumor flies, and the hearts of Latian mothers flare up with the same fury. The same frenzy spurs them to seek new homes. Old homes deserted, baring their necks, they loose their hair to the winds. Some fill the air with their high-pitched, trilling wails, decked in fawn skins, brandishing lances wound with vines. And Amata, mid them all, shaking a flaming brand of pine, breaks into a marriage hymn for Turnus and her daughter. Rolling her bloodshot eyes, she suddenly bursts out wildly. Mothers of Latium, listen, wherever you are. If any love for unlucky Amata still stirs your hearts, your loyal hearts, if any care for a mother's rights still cuts you to the quick, loose your headbands, seize on the orgies with me. Mad. While through the woods and deserted lairs of wild beasts, Allecto whips Amata on with a lash that whips her Aeneid. Once Allecto saw her first arrows of madness piercing home, and Latinus' plans, and his whole house overwhelmed, the grim goddess takes flight on her black wings and heads straight for the walls of bold Rutulian Turnus. Danae once, they say, swept ashore by a southern gale, built that town of her father's settlers, King Acrisius. Ardea, our forebears called the place in the old days, and the mighty name of Ardea still stands firm, but its glory is gone forever. Here, under steep roofs in the dark night, Turnus, dead to the world, lay fast asleep. And Allecto strips away her ghastly features, her fury's writhing limbs, transforms herself, her face like an old crone's. She furrows her brow with hideous wrinkles now, and takes on snowy hair, binds it with ribbons, braids it with sprays of olive. Now she's Calliope, aged priestess of Juno's temple. So she appears in the young king's eyes and urges, Turnus, how can you lie back and let your labors come to nothing? Your own scepter's handed over to settlers fresh from Troy. The king denies you your bride, denies you your dowry earned in blood. He seeks a stranger as heir to his royal throne. Now go and offer yourself to thankless dangers, you laughingstock. Go mow the Tuscans down. Armor your Latins well with pacts of peace. This message mighty Juno in person ordered me to give you here, asleep in the dead of night. Action. In high spirits, alert your men and arm them. Move them out through the gates to the field of battle. Burn them to ash, those Phrygian chiefs encamped at ease along our lovely river and all their painted ships. Great gods on high decree it so. King Latinus, if he won't yield your bride and keep his word, then he must learn his lesson, taste at last the force of Turnus' sword. Laughing, ready with his reply, the prince mocks the prophet. So, a fleet sailed into the Tiber. The tale's not failed, as you imagine, to reach my ears. Stop concocting this panic for me, please. Queen Juno has hardly wiped me from her mind. It's your dotage, mother, you doddering wreck, too spent to see the truth, that shakes you with anguish all for nothing now. You and your warring kings, your false alarms, you mockery of a prophet. See to your own chores. Go tend the shrines and statues of the gods. Men will make war and peace. War is their work. Enough. Allecto ignited in rage. The challenge still on his lips, a sudden shuddering seized him, eyes fixed in terror. The fury was looming up with so many serpents hissing, so monstrous her features now revealed. Rolling her eyes, fiery as he faltered, struggling to say more, she hurled the man back and reared twin snakes from her coiling hair and cracked her whip and raved in her rabid words. So I'm in my dotage, am I? A doddering wreck too spent to see the truth? I and my warring kings, a mockery of a prophet am I? False alarms? Well, look at these alarms. I come to you from the nightmare furies' den. I brandish war and death in my right hand. With that, she flung a torch at the prince and drove it home in his chest to smoke with a hellish black glare. A nightmare broke his sleep, and the sweat poured from all over his body, drenched him to the bone. He shouts for armor, frenzied, cries for his armor, rifling through his bed and the whole house to find it. He burns with lust for the sword, the cursed madness of war and rage to top it off. He roars like blazing brush piled under the ribs of a billowing bronze cauldron. The water seethes in the heat, and a river boils inside it, bubbling up in spume. The bull can't hold it. It overflows, and a thick cloud of steam goes shooting into the air. So, violating the peace, he tells his captains, march on King Latinus, gear up for war, defend Italy, hurl the enemy from the borders. Turnus comes, a match for Trojans and Latins both. Commands given, he called the gods to witness. His keen Rutulians spur each other to arms, some moved by his matchless build and youth, some by his royal bloodline, some by his sword arms shining work in war. While Turnus fills his Rutulian troops with headlong daring, Allecto flies to the Trojan camp on Stygian wings. A fresh plot in the air to scout out the place where handsome Euryalus was hunting along the shore, coursing, netting game. Here the infernal fury throws an instant frenzy into the hounds. She daubs their nostrils wet with a well-known scent, and they burn to chase a stag. This was the first cause of all the pain and struggle. This first kindled the country people's lust for war. There was a stag, a rare beauty, antlers branching, torn from his mother's dugs. And the sons of Tyrrus nursed it with Father Tyrrus, who kept the royal herds, charged with tending the broad, spreading pastures. Their sister Silvia trained the stag to take the commands she gave with love, wreathed its horns with tender, fresh-cut garlands, curried the wild creature, bathed it in running springs. Tamed to the touch, it liked to frequent its master's table. Roving the forests, home to the well-known door it came, all on its own, even at dead of night. The fine beast, straying from home, chanced to be floating down a stream, cooling off on a grassy bank when the frenzied hounds of the hunter Euryalus started it. Euryalus himself, fired with the love of glory, aimed a shaft from his tensed bow, and Allecto steadied his trembling hand, and the arrow shot with a whirring rush and pierced through womb and loins. Back to its well-known home, the wounded creature fled, struggled into its stall and groaning, bleeding, filling the long halls with cries of pain. It seemed to plead for help. The sister Silvia, she is the first to call for rescue, hands beating her arms, summoning hardy rustics. Unexpectedly, in they come, for savage Allecto stalks the silent forests, some with torches charred to a point, some with heavy knotted clubs. Whatever they find to hand their anger hones to weapons. Tyrrus rallies his troops. He's just been splitting an oak in four with wedges. Now, breathing fury, he seizes a woodsman's axe. Savage Allecto, high on a lookout, spots her chance to wreak some havoc. Winging up the stable's steep roof, she lights on the highest peak and sounds the herdsman's call to arms, a hellish blast from her twisted horn, and straightway all the copses shiver. All the woods resound to their darkest depths. Far in the distance, Trivia's lake could hear it. The glistening sulphur stream of the Nar could hear it. So could the springs of Lake Velenus, and anxious mothers clutch their babies to their breasts. Then, quick to the call that cursed trumpet gave, the wild herdsmen gather from every quarter, snatching arms in haste. Young Trojans, too, their camp gates spread wide, come pouring out to help Ascanius now. The battle lines form up. No rustic free-for-all with clubs and charred stakes. They'll fight to the finish now with two-edged swords. A black harvest of naked steel bristles far and wide, and the bronze struck by the sun gleams bright and hurls its light to the clouds like a billow, whitening under the wind's first gust, as crest on crest the ocean rises, its breakers rearing higher until it surges up from its depths to hit the skies. Here a youngster breaks from the front, and an arrow whizzes in, and down he goes. Almo, the eldest son of Tyrrus. The point lodges deep in his throat and chokes off the moist path for his voice and his faint life breath with blood. Around him, heaps of dead, and among them old Gallisus, killed as he set himself in their midst to beg for peace. The most righteous man in all the Italian fields, long ago, the richest too. 5 flocks of cattle he had in tow, and 5 came from pasture. 100 plowshares made his topsoil churn. As the battle draws dead even across the plain, the Fury's power has lived up to her promise. She's fleshed the war in blood, inaugurated this slaughter with a kill, and now she leaves Hesperia, wheeling round in the heavens to report success to Juno, the Fury's voice triumphant. Look, I've done your bidding, perfected a work of strife with ghastly war. Go tell them to join in friendship, seal their pacts. Now I've spattered the Trojans red with Italian blood. I'll add this too, if I can depend on your goodwill. With rumors I will draw the border towns into war, ignite their hearts with maddening lust for battle. They'll rush to the rescue now from every side. I'll sow their fields with swords. Enough terror, Juno counters. Treachery too. The causes of war stand firm. Man to man they fight, and the weapons luck first brought are dyed with fresh blood now. Let them sing of such an alliance, such a wedding hymn. The matchless sons of Venus and that grand king Latinus. You're roving far too freely, high on the heavens winds, and the Father, king of steep Olympus, won't allow it. You must give way. Whatever struggle is to come, I'll manage it myself. Quick to Juno's command, she lifts her wings, hissing with snakes and quitting the airy heights of heaven, seeks her home in hell. Deep in Italy's heart, beneath high mountains, lies a famous place renowned in many lands. The valley of Amsanctus, a dark wooded hillside with thick foliage closes around it right and left. With a crashing torrent amidst it roaring over boulders, rapids roiling white. And here they display a cavern, an awesome breathing vent for the savage god of death, and a vast swirling gorge spreads wide its lethal jaws, where the Acheron bursts through, and here the Fury hit her hateful power, releasing earth and sky. But no let up yet. Saturn's queenly daughter is just now putting the final touches to the war. Out of the field of battle, streaming into town, whole troops of herdsmen are bringing home the dead. Almo, the young boy, Glacis with his butchered face, and they beg the gods for rescue, pleading with Latinus. But there stands Turnus now, and amid their hot fury and rising cries of murder, he fires up their fears. Trojans are called to share our realm. Phrygian blood will corrupt our own, and I'm driven from the doors. And all whose mothers, maddened by Bacchus, dance in frenzy through the trackless woods. Amyntas' name has no light weight. Swarm in from all sides, wearying Mars with war cries. Suddenly all are demanding this accursed war against all omens, against the divine power of fate, they've spurred by a wicked impulse. They rush to ring the palace of King Latinus round, but he stands fast like a rock at sea, a sea-bound rock that won't give way. When a big surge hits and the howling breaker is pounded hard, its bulk stands fast, though its foaming reefs and spurs roar on, all for nothing, as seaweed dashing against its flanks swirls away in the backwash. But finding he lacks the power to quash their blind, fanatic will, and the world rolls on at a nod from brutal Juno, time and again he calls the gods and empty winds to witness. Crushed by fate, the father cries, we're wrenched away by the tempest. My poor people, You will pay for your outrage with your blood. You, Turnus, the guilt is yours, and a dreadful end awaits you. You will implore the gods with prayers that come too late. Myself, now that I've reached my peaceful haven, here at the harbor's mouth, I am robbed of a happy death." He said no more. He sealed himself in his house and dropped the reins of power. There was a custom in Latium, land of the West, and ever after revered in Alban towns, and now great Rome that rules the world reveres it too, where men first roused the war god into action, whether bent on bringing the griefs of war to the Getae, the Hyrcanians, or the Arabs are marching on India, out to stalk the dawn and reclaim the standards taken by the Parthians. There are twin gates of war, so they are called, consecrated by awe and the dread of savage Mars, closed fast by 100 brazen bolts and iron strong forever. Nor does Janus the watchman ever leave the threshold. And here it is, when the Father's will is set out on all-out war, the consul himself, decked out in Romulus's garb, his toga girt up in the ceremonial gabbing way, will unbar the screeching gates and cry for war. The entire army answers his call to arms, and brazen trumpets blast their harsh assent. Then, too, Latinus was pressed to declare war on Aeneas' sons with the same custom, to unbar the deadly gates. But the father of his people refused to touch them, cringed at the horrid duty, locked himself from sight in his shadowed palace. So the queen of the gods, Saturn's daughter swooping down from the heavens, struck the unyielding doors with her own hand, swinging them on their hinges, bursting open the iron gates of war. All Italy blazed, until that instant all unstirred, inert. Now some gear up to cross the plains on foot, some riding on their horses, wildly churn the dust, and all shout out, "To arms!" Polishing shields smooth, burnishing lances bright with thick, rich grease, honing their axes keen on grindstones. And what joy to advance the banners, hear the trumpets blare. 5 great cities, in fact, plant their anvils, forge new weapons, staunch Aetna, lofty Tiber, Ardea, Crustumerium, Antemnae, proud with towers. They beat the helmets hollow to guard the head. They weave the wicker tight to rib their shields. Others are pounding breastplates out of bronze, hammering lightweight greaves from pliant silver. So it has given way to this. All their pride in the scythe and harrow, all their love of the plow. They reforge in the furnace all their fathers' swords. Now the trumpets blare. The watchwords out for war. One warrior wildly tears a helmet from his house. One yokes his panting, stamping team to a chariot, donning his shield and mail, triple meshed in gold, and he straps a trusty sword around his waist. Now throw Helicon open, muses. Launch your song. What kings were fired for war? What armies at their orders thronged the plains? What heroes sprang into bloom? What weapons blazed even those days long ago in Italy's life-giving land? You are goddesses, you remember it all, and you can tell it all. All we catch is the distant ring of fame. First to march to war is brutal Mezentius, scorner of gods, fresh from the Tuscan coast to deploy his troops for battle. Beside him his son, Lausus, second in build and beauty to Latin Turnus alone. Lausus, breaker of horses, hunter of wild game. From Agila town he led 1,000 men. Who could not save his life? A son who deserved more joy in a father's rule. Anyone but Mezentius for a father. Following them comes Aventinus, handsome Hercules' handsome son, parading his victor's team across the field, his chariot crowned with the victor's palm, his shield emblazed with his father's sign, the Hydra's 100 snakes, the serpents twisting round. Deep in the woods, on Aventine Hill, the priestess Rhea bore him, all in secret, into the world of light. A woman matched with a god, with Hercules, hero of Tyrans, come to the Latin land in glory, fresh from cutting the monster Geryon down, to wash the herds of Spain in the Tiber River. The men bear spears and grim pikes into battle, fight with sword blades ground to a razor edge, and Sibelian hurling spears. The man himself came out on foot, swirling a giant lion's hide, its shaggy head hooding his head with its white teeth. A terrible sight as he marched up to the palace, the wild battle dress of his father Hercules wrapped around his shoulders. Next in the march come twin brothers, leaving Tiber's walls, and people named for their brother's name. Tiberitus, Catalus and fearless Chorus, boys from Argos. Out of the front lines, into the thick and fast of spears they charge as two centaurs born in the clouds come bolting headlong down from a steep summit, speeding down from Homily or from Orthus' snowy slopes. And the tall timber cleaves wide at their onrush, thickets split with a huge resounding crash. Nor was Praenestes found or lacking from the ranks. King Cacus, born to Vulcan among the flocks, all ages still believe, and found on a burning hearth. His rustic bands escort him now from near and far, the men who live on Praenestes heights, on the fields of gabbing Juno, men from the Aeneas' icy stream, the Hercules' dripping rocks, men you nourish, rich in Aeneid, bathed in your river. Father Amasenus. Not all of them marched to war with armor, shields and chariots rumbling on. Mostly slingers spraying pellets of livid lead. Some brandish a pair of lances, all heads cowled with tawny wolfskin caps. Their left feet planted, making a naked print, their right feet shod with a rugged rawhide boot. Next Messapus, breaker of horses, Neptune's son, a king whom neither fire nor iron could bring down. He suddenly grasps his fighting sword again, calls back to arms his people long at peace, his rusty contingents long at rest from battle. Men who hold Fiscenia's ridge, Aquae Felici too, the steep slopes of Soracte and all Flavina's fields, the lake of Simonus rimmed with hills, and Capina's groves. They marched in cadence and sang their ruler's praise like snowy swans you'll see in the misting clouds, winging back from their feeding grounds, their song bursting out of their long throats with beat on beat, resounding far from the river banks and Asian marsh that their pulsing chorus pounds. You'd never think such a throng of men in bronze were massing for battle now, but high in the sky a cloud of birds with their raucous song were surging home from open sea to shore. But look, Colossus, born of the age-old Sabine blood, heading a mighty force himself. From Colossus spreads through Latium, both the Claudian tribe and clan. Once Rome had long been shared with Sabine people. Under his command came huge divisions from Amiternum, the first Curites, all the ranks from Eretum, Mutusca green with olives, all who live in Nomentum city, the Rosian fields by Lake Velenus, all on Tetrica's shaggy spurs, and grim-set Mount Severus, all in Casperia, Phoralae, on the Himela river's banks. Men who drink the Tiber and Fabaris, men dispatched from icy Nursia, musters from Orda, the Latin tribes, men that the Alia, ominous name, devised as it flows on. Men as many as breakers rolling in from the Libyan sea when savage Orion sets low in the winter waves, or dense as the ears of corn baked by an early sun on Hermes' plain or Lycia's burnished fields. Shields clang, and under the trampling feet the earth quakes in fear. Next, Agamemnon's man who hated the very name of Troy, Halasus, yoking his team to a chariot, speeds along 1,000 diehard clans in Turnus' cause, men whose mattocks till the Massic earth for wine. Aruncans their fathers set from the rising hills, and Sidicine flats close by, and men just come from Calais, men who make their homes along the Vulturnus' shoals, and beside them rough Seticolans, squads of Oskans. Their weapons are long, pointed stakes they like to fit with a supple thong for swifter hurling. They have bucklers to shield their left side, sickle swords for combat, cut and thrust. Nor will you, Ebolus, go unsung in our songs. You, they say, river nymph Sebethus once bore Telon, an old man now, when Telon ruled over Capri. the Telebonian Isle. But the son, unlike the father, not content with his forebears' holdings, even now held sway over broader realms. The Cerastian clans, their meadows washed by the Sarnus, men from Rufre, Badalum, and Kalemna's farms, and soldiers overseen by the high walls of Abella rife with apples, fighters who whirl the barbed lance, Teutonic style, their heads wrapped with the bark they strip from cork trees, bronze shields gleaming bronze, their swords. You too, Uffins, Nurse's foothills sent you to war with your glowing fame, your brilliant luck in arms, and your Aequian clans, most rugged men alive, seasoned to rough hunting in thicket groves. On their hard-scrabble land, armed to the hilt, they work the earth, their constant joy to haul fresh booty home and live off all they seize. Next from the margin stock, a priest came marching in, his helmet crowned with a leafy olive spray, sent by King Archippus. Umbro, no man braver, an old hand, with his touch and spells, at shedding sleep on the vipers' spawn and lake snakes hissing death, at soothing their anger, healing bites with his magic arts. But he had no cure for the stab of a Trojan lance, none of his drowsy incantations, no drugs culled on the Martian hills, could heal him of his wounds. For you the grove of Angidia wept, for you the crystal swells of Fucinus Lake, for you the clear quiet pools. He rode to war as well, Virbius, striking son of Hippolytus, sent to fight by his mother Erycia. Virbius in his triumph, bred in Egaria's grove that rings the marshy banks where Diana's altar stands, rich with victims fit to win her favor. For they say Hippolytus, once his stepmother's craft had laid him low, and he'd paid the price his father set in blood, and his horses went berserk and tore the man apart. Back he came, under the world of stars and windy sky, reborn by the healer's potent herbs and Diana's love. Then Father Almighty, enraged that any mortal rise from the shades below, returned to the light of life. Jove with his lightning bolt struck down Apollo's son, who honed such healing skills, down to the Styx's flood. But kind Diana hides the man away in a secret haunt, sends him off to Egaria, deep in the nymphs' grove, where, alone in Italian woods and all unsung, Virbius, his new name, he might live out his time. And so it is that horn-hoofed steeds are barred from Diana Trivia's shrine and holy groves, since horses, panicked by monsters of the deep, scattered the man and chariot out along the shore. Nevertheless his son was lashing fiery chargers down the level fields, his chariot hurtling Virbius into battle. And there the man himself, Turnus, his build magnificent, sword brandished, marches along his captains, topping all by a head. Triple plumed, his high helmet raises up a chimera, with all the fires of Etna blasting from its throat and roaring all the more, its searing flames more deadly the more blood flows, and the battle grows more fierce. There on the burnished shield, Io, blazoned in gold, her horns raised, her skin already bristly with hair, already changed to a cow, an awesome emblem, as Argus guards the girl and Father Inachus pours a stream from a chaste urn. And following Turnus comes a cloud of troops on foot, shield-bearing battalions swarming the whole plain. Men in their prime from Argus, ranks of Aruncans, Rutulians, Sicanian veterans on in years. Sicranians in columns, Libetians bearing their painted shields, men who plow your glades, old Tiber, the Numicus' holy banks, whose plowshare turns the Rutulian slopes and Circe's high ridge cape. The men from fields where Jove of Anxur reigns and goddess Feronia takes joy in her fine green grove, and troops from Satura's black marsh where the frigid Uffins weaves his way through a valley's bottom land and plunges down to sea. Topping off the armies rides Camilla, sprung from the Volscian people, heading her horsemen, squadrons gleaming bronze. This warrior girl, with her young hands untrained for Minerva's spools and baskets filled with wool, a virgin seasoned to bear the rough work of battle. Swift outraced the winds with her lightning pace. Camilla could skim the tips of the unreaped crops, never bruising the tender ears in her swift rush or wing her way, hovering over the mid-sea swell and never dip her racing feet in the waves. Young men all come pouring from homes and fields, and crowding mothers marvel, stare at her as she strides, awestruck, breathless. How the beauty of royal purple cloaks her glossy shoulders. How her golden brooch binds up her hair, how she cradles a Lycian quiver, her shepherd's staff of myrtle spiked with steel. Book 8. The Shield of Aeneas. Soon as Turnus hoisted the banner of war from Laurentum's heights, and the piercing trumpets blared, soon as he whipped his horses rearing for action, clashed his spear against his shield, passions rose at once. All Latium stirred in frenzy to swear the oath, and young troops blazed for war. The chiefs in the lead, Messapus, Uphans, Mezentius, scorner of gods, call up forces from all quarters and strip the fields of men who worked the soil. They send Venulus out to great Diomedes' city to seek reserves and announce that Trojan ranks encamp in Latium. Aeneas arrives with his armada, bringing the conquered household goods of Troy, claiming himself a king demanded now by fate. And the many tribes report to join the Dardan chief, and his name rings far and wide through Latian country. But where does the build-up end? What does he long to gain, if luck is on his side, from open warfare? Clearly Diomedes would know, better than King Turnus, better than King Latinus. So things went in Latium. Watching it all, the Trojan hero heaved in a churning sea of anguish, his thoughts racing, here, there, probing his options, shifting to this plan, that, as quick as flickering light thrown off by water in bronze bowls, reflects the sun or radiant moon, now flittering near in fire, now rising to strike a ceiling's gilded fretwork. The dead of night. Over the earth all wary living things, all birds and flocks were fast asleep when Captain Aeneas, his heart racked by the threat of war, lay down on the bank beneath the chilly arc of the sky and at long last indulged his limbs in sleep. Before his eyes the god of the lonely river, old Tiber himself, seemed to rise from among the poplar leaves, gowned in his blue-gray linen fine as mist, with a shady crown of reeds to wreathe his hair, and greeted Aeneas to ease him of his anguish. Born of the stock of gods, you who bring back Troy to us from enemy hands and save her heights forever. How long we waited for you, here on Laurentine soil and Latian fields. Here your home is assured, yes, assured for your household gods. Don't retreat, don't fear the threats of war. The swelling rage of the gods has died away. I tell you now, so you won't think me an empty dream, that under an oak along the banks you'll find a great sow stretched on her side with 30 pigs just farrowed. A snow-white mother with snow-white young at her dugs. By this sign, after 30 years have made their rounds, Ascanius will establish Alba, bright as the city's name. All that I foresee has been decreed. But how to begin this current struggle here and see it through, victorious all the way? I'll explain in a word or so. Listen closely. On these shores, Arcadians sprung from Pallas. King Evander's comrades, marching under his banner, picked their site and placed a city on these hills. Palantium, named for their famous forebear, Pallas. They wage a relentless war against the Latin people. Welcome them to your camp as allies. Seal your pacts. I myself will lead you between my banks, upstream, making your way against the current under oars. I'll speed you on your journey. Up with you, son of Venus. Now, as the first stars set, offer the proper prayers to Juno. Overcome her anger and threats with vows and plead for help. You will pay me with honors once you have won your way. I am the flowing river that you see, sweeping the banks and cutting across the tilled fields rich and green. I am the river Tiber, clear blue as the heavens, stream most loved by the gods who rule the sky. My great home is here. My fountainhead gives rise to noble cities. With that, the river sank low in his deep pool, heading down to the depths as Aeneas, night and slumber over, gazing toward the sunlight climbing up the sky, rises, duly draws up water in cupped hands, and pours forth this prayer to heaven's heights. You nymphs, Laurentine nymphs, you springs of rivers, and you, Father Tiber, you and your holy stream, embrace Aeneas, shield him from dangers now at last. You who pity our hardships, wherever the ground lies, where you come surging forth in all your glory, always with offerings, always with gifts, I'll do you honor. You great horned king of the rivers of the west, just be with me, prove your will with works. So he prays in choosing a pair of galleys from the fleet. He mans them both with rowers, while fitting out his troops with battle gear. But look, suddenly, right before the awestruck eyes of marvel, shining white through the woods with a brood as white, lying stretched out on a grassy bank for all to see, a great sow. Devout Aeneas offers her up to you, Queen Juno on high, a blood sacrifice to you, standing her at your altar with her young. All night long the Tiber lulled his swell, checking his current so his waves would lie serene, silent, still as a clear lagoon or peaceful marsh, soothing its surface smooth. No labor there for oars. So they embark with cheers to speed them on their way, and the dark tarred hulls go gliding through the river, amazing the tides, amazing the groves unused to the sight of warriors' shields, flashing jar, and blazoned galleys moving on upstream. And on they row, wearying night and day as they round the long, winding bends, floating under the mottled shade of many trees, and cleave the quiet stream reflecting leafy woods. The fiery sun had climbed to mid-career when, off in the distance, they catch sight of walls, a citadel, scattered roofs of houses. All that now the imperial power of Rome has lifted to the skies. But then what Evander held, his humble kingdom. Quickly they swerve their prows and row for town. As luck would have it, that day Arcadia's king was holding solemn annual rites in honor of Hercules, Amphitryon's powerful son, and paying vows to the gods in a grove before the city, flanked by his son, Pallas. The ranking men and the lowly senate, all were offering incense now, and warm blood was steaming on the altars. As soon as they saw the tall ships gliding through the shadowed woods and the rowers bending to pull the oars in silence, alarmed by the unexpected sight, all rise as one to desert the sacred feast. But Pallas forbids them to cut short the rites, and fearless seizes a spear and runs to confront the new arrivals by himself. "Soldiers," he shouts from a barrow some way off, "what drives you to these unfamiliar paths? Where are you going? Who are you people? Where is your home? Do you bring peace or war?" Then Captain Aeneas calls from his high stern, his hands extending the olive branch of peace. "We're Trojan born. The weapons you see are honed for our foes, the Latins. They drive us here, as exiles, with all the arrogance of war. We look for Evander. Tell him this. Leading chiefs of Dardania come, pressing to be his friends in arms. Dardania." Pallas, awestruck by the famous name, cries out, "Come down onto dry land, whoever you are. Speak with my father face to face. Come under our roofs, our welcome guest." Clasping Aeneas' right hand, he held it long, and heading up to the grove, they leave the river. There Aeneas hails Evander with winning words. "Best of the sons of Greece, fortune has decreed that I pray to you for help. Extend this branch of olive wound in wool. I had no fear of you as a captain of the Greeks, Arcadia born, and bound by blood of Atreus' twin sons. For I am bound to you by my own strength, by oracles of the gods, and by our fathers, bloodkin, and your own fame that echoes through the world. All this binds me to you, and fate drives me here, and glad I am to follow." Dardanus, first and founding father of Ilium, came to the land of Troy, a son, as Greeks will tell, of Electra, that Electra, daughter of Atlas, mighty Atlas who bears the grand orb of the heavens on his shoulders. Your father is Mercury, conceived by radiant Maia, and born on a snow-capped peak of Mount Selene. But Maia's father, to trust what we have heard, is Atlas, the same Atlas who lifts the starry skies. So our two lines are branches sprung from the same blood. Counting on this, I plan my approach to you. Not with envoys or artful diplomatic probes. I come in person, put my life on the line, a suppliant at your doors to plead for help. The same people attack us both in savage war. Rutilians under Turnus, if they drive us out, nothing. They do believe can stop their forcing all of Italy, all lands of the west beneath their yoke. The masters of every seaboard, north and south. Take in return our trust, brave hearts in war, our tempers steeled, our armies proved in action. Aeneas closed. While he spoke, Evander had marked his eyes, his features, his whole frame, and now he replies pointedly, Bravest of the Trojans, how I welcome you, recognize you with all my heart. How well I recall the face, the words, the voice of your father, King Anchises. Once I remember Priam, son of Laomedon, bound for Salamis, out to visit his sister, Hesiane's kingdom, continued on to see Arcadia's cold frontiers. Then my cheeks still sported the bloom of youth, and I was full of wonder to see the chiefs of Troy. Wondered to see Laomedon's son, Priam himself, no doubt, but one walked taller than all the rest, Anchises. I yearned, in a boy's way, to approach the king and take him by the hand. So up I went to him, eagerly showed him round the walls of Phineus. At his departure he gave me a splendid quiver, bristling Lycian arrows, a battle cape shot through with golden mesh, and a pair of gilded reins my son, Pallas, now makes his. So the right hand you want is clasping yours. We are allies bound as one. Soon as tomorrow's sun returns to light the earth, I'll see you off. Cheered with an escort and support, I'll send you your way. But now for the rites, since you have come as friends. Our annual rites it would be wrong to interrupt. So with a warm heart celebrate them with us now. High time you felt at ease with comrades is fair. That said, he orders back the food and cups already cleared away, and the king himself conducts his guests to places on the grass. Aeneas, the guest of honor, he invites to a throne of maple, cushioned soft with a shaggy lion's hide. Then picked young men and the altar priest, outdoing themselves, bring on the roasted flesh of bulls, and heap the baskets high with the gifts of Ceres, wheaten loaves just baked, and in Bacchus' name they keep the wine cups flowing. And now Aeneas and all his Trojan soldiers feast on the oxen's long back cut and sacred vitals. Once their hunger was put aside, their appetites content, King Evander began. These annual rites, this feast, a custom ages old, this shrine to a great spirit, no hollow superstition, and no blind ignorance of the early gods has forced them on us. No, my Trojan guest, we have been saved from dangers, brutal perils, and so we observe these rites. We renew them year by year, and justly so. Now then, first look up at this crag with its overhanging rocks, the boulders strewn afar. An abandoned mountain lair still stands, where the massive rocks came rumbling down in an avalanche, a ruin. There once was a cavern here, a vast, unplumbed recess untouched by the sun's rays, where a hideous, part-human monster made his home, Cacus. The ground was always steaming with fresh blood, and nailed to his high and mighty doors, men's faces dangled, sickening, rotting, and bled white. The monster's father was Vulcan, whose smoky flames he vomited from his maw as he hauled his lumbering hulk. But even to us, at last, time brought the answer to our prayers, the help, the arrival of a god, the greatest avenger, Hercules. On he came, triumphant in his slaughter and all the spoils of triple-bodied Geryon. The great victor, driving those huge bulls down to pasture, herds crowding these river banks and glens. But Cacus, desperate bandit, wild to leave no crime, no treachery undared, untested, stole from their steadings 4 champion bulls and as many head of first-rate, well-built heifers. But to leave no hoof marks pointing forward, into his cave he dragged them by the tail, turning their tracks backward. The pirate hid his plunder deep in his dark rocks. No hunter could spot a trace that led toward that cave. Meanwhile, Hercules was about to move his herds out, full fed from their grazing, ready to go himself when the cows began to low at parting, filling the woods with protest, bellowing to the hills they had to leave. But one heifer, deep in the vast cavern, lowed back, and Cacus's prisoner foiled its jailer's hopes. Suddenly Hercules ignited in rage. In black fury and seizing his weapons and weighted knotted club, he made for the hill's steep heights at top speed. And that was the first we'd seen of Cacus afraid. His eyes a-swirl with terror. Off to his cave he flees, swifter than any east wind, yes. His feet were winged with fear. He shut himself in its depths, shattered the chains, and down the great rock dropped, suspended by steel and his father's skill, to wedge between the doorposts, block the entrance fast. Watch Hercules on the attack, scanning every opening, tossing his head this way, that way, grinding his teeth, blazing in rage. 3 times he circles the whole Aventine hill. 3 times he tries to storm the rocky gates, no use. 3 times he sinks down in the lowlands, power spent. Looming over the cavern's ridge, a spur reared up, all jagged flint, its steep sides shearing away. A beetling, towering sight, a favorite haunt of nestling vultures. This crag jutting over the ridge, leaning left of the river down below. He charged from the right and rocked it, prized it up from its bedrock, tore it free of its roots. Then abruptly hurled it down, and the hurl's force made mighty heaven roar as the banks split far apart, and the river's tide went flooding back in terror. But the cave and giant palace of Cacus lay exposed, and his shadowy cavern cleaved wide to its depths, as if earth's depths had yawned under some upheaval, bursting open the locks of the underworld's abodes, revealing the livid kingdom loathed by the gods. And from high above you could see the plunging abyss and the ghosts terror-struck as the light comes streaming in. So Cacus, caught in that stunning flood of light, shut off in his hollow rock, howling as never before. Hercules overwhelms him from high above, raining down all weapons he finds at hand, torn off branches, rocks like millstones. A death trap, no way out for the monster now. Cacus retches up from his throat dense fumes, unearthly, I tell you, endless waves billowing through his lair, wiping all from sight, and deep into his cave he spews out tides of rolling, smoking darkness, night and fire fused. Undaunted Hercules had enough. Furious, headlong down he leapt through the flames where the thickest smoke was massing, black clouds of it seething up and down the enormous cavern. Here, as Cacus spouts his flames in the darkness, all for nothing, Hercules grapples him, knots him fast in a deathlock, throttling him, gouging out the eyes in his head, choking the blood in his gullet dry. He tears out the doors in a flash, opens the pitch-black den and the stolen herds, a crime that Cacus had denied, are laid bare to the skies, and out by the heels he drags the ghastly carcass into the light. No one can get his fill of gazing at those eyes, terrible eyes that face the matted, bristling chest of the brute beast, its fiery maw burnt out. From then on, we have solemnized the service, and all our heirs have kept the day with joy. Botidius first, the founder of the rites, the Panarian house too. That guards the worship of Hercules. Botidius set this altar in the grove, the greatest altar we shall always call it. Always the greatest it will be. So come, my boys, in honor of his heroic exploits, crown your hair with leaves, hold high your cups, invoke the God we share with our new allies, offer him wine with all your eager hearts. With that welcome, a wreath of poplar, hung with the poplar garland's green and silver sheen that shaded Hercules once, shaded Evander's hair and crowned his head, and the sacred wooden wine cup filled his hand. In no time all were tipping wine on the board, with happy hearts and praying to the gods. Meanwhile, evening is coming closer, wheeling down the sky, and now the priests advance, Botidius in the lead, robed in animal skins the old accustomed way and bearing torches. They refresh the banquet, bringing on the second course, a welcome savor, weighing the altars down with groaning platters. Then the Sally, dancing priests of Mars, come clustering, leaping around the flaming altars, raising the chorus, brows wreathed with poplar. Here a troop of boys and a troop of old men there, singing Hercules' praises, all his heroic feats. How he strangled the first monsters, twin serpents sent by his stepmother Juno, crushed them in his hands, and the same in warfare, how he razed to the roots those brilliant cities, Troy and Oechalia both. How under Eurystheus he endured the countless grueling labors, Juno's brutal doom. Hercules, you the unvanquished one, you have slaughtered centaurs born of the clouds, half man, half horse, Helios and Pholus, the bull, the monster of Crete, the tremendous Nemean lion holed in his rocky den. The Stygian tide pools trembled at your arrival. Death's watchdog cringed, sprawling over the heaps of half-devoured bones in his gory cave. But nothing, no specter on earth has touched your heart with fear, not even Typhoeus himself, towering up with weapons. Nor did Lerna's hydra, heads swarming around you, strip you of your wits. Hail, true son of Jove, you glory added to all the gods. Come to us, come to your sacred rites and speed us on with your own righteous stride. So they sing his praise, and to crown it sing of Cacus's cave, the monster breathing fire, and all the woods resound with the ringing hymns, and the hillsides echo back. And then, with the holy rites performed in full, they turned back to the city. The king, bent with years, kept his comrades, Aeneas and his son, beside him, moving on as he eased the way with many stories. Aeneas marveled, his keen eyes gazing round, entranced by the sight, gladly asking, learning, one by one, the legendary tales of the men of old. King Evander, founder of Rome's great citadel, begins. These woods the native fauns and the nymphs once held, and a breed of mortals sprung from the rugged trunks of oaks. They had no notion of custom, no cultured way of life, knew nothing of yoking oxen, laying away provisions, garnering up their stores. They lived off branches, berries and acorns, hunters' rough-cut fare. First came Saturn, down from the heights of heaven, fleeing Jove in arms. Saturn, robbed of his kingdom, exiled. He united these wild people scattered over the hilltops, gave them laws and pitched on the name of Latium for the land, since he'd lain hidden within its limits, safe and sound. Saturn's reign was the age of gold, men like to say. So peacefully, calm and kind, he ruled his subjects. But little by little, a lesser, tarnished age came stealing in, filled with the madness of war, the passion for possessions. Then on they came, the Ausonian ranks in arms, Sicanian tribes, and time and again the land of Saturn changed its name. Then kings reared up, and the savage giant, Thybris, and since his time we Italians call our river Tiber. The true name of the old river, Albula, is lost and gone, and I, cast from my country bound for the ocean's end, irresistible fortune and inescapable fate have planted me in this place, spurred on by my mother's dire warnings, the nymph Carmentis and god Apollo's power. No sooner said that, moving on, he points out the altar of Carmentis, then the Carmental Gate, as the Romans call it, an ancient tribute paid to the nymph Carmentis, seer who told the truth, the first to foresee the greatness of Aeneas' sons and Pallanteum's fame to come. Next he displays the grand grove that heroic Romulus restored as a refuge, the asylum, then shows him, under its chilly rock, the grotto called the Lupercal, in the old Arcadian way, Pan of Mount Lycaeus. And he shows him the grove of hallowed Argiletum too. He swears by the spot, retells the death of Argus, once his guest. From there he leads Aeneas on to Tarpeia's house in the capital. All gold now, but once in the old days thorny, dense with thickets. Even then the awesome dread of the place struck fear in the hearts of rustics. Even then they trembled before the woodland and the rock. This grove, he says, this hill with its crown of leaves is God's home, whatever God he is. My Arcadians think they've seen almighty Jove in person, often brandishing high his black storm shield in his strong right hand as he drives the tempest on. Here, what's more, in these two towns, their walls raised to the roots, you can see the relics, monuments of the men of old. This fortress built by Father Janus, that by Saturn. This was called the Uniculum, that Saturnia. So, conversing and drawing near Evander's humble home, they saw herds of cattle everywhere, lowing loud in the Roman Forum and Carene's elegant district. These gates, Evander says, as he reaches his lodge. Hercules in his triumph stooped to enter here. This mansion of mine was grand enough for him. Courage, my friend. Dare to scoff at riches. Make yourself, you too, worthy to be a god. Come into my meager house, and don't be harsh. So he said, and under his narrow sloped roof, he led the great Aeneas, laid him down on a bed of fallen leaves in the hide of a Libyan bear. Night comes rushing down, embracing the earth in its deep, dark wings. But his mother, Venus, stirred by fear, no wonder, by all the threats and the Latins' violent uproar, goes to Vulcan now, and there in their golden bridal chamber whispers, breathing immortal love through every word. When Greek kings were ravishing Troy in war, her fated towers, her ramparts doomed to enemy fires, I asked no help for the victims then. I never begged for the weapons right within your skill and power. No, my dearest husband, I never put you to work in a lost cause, much as I owed to Priam's sons, however often I wept for Aeneas' grueling labors. Now, by Jove's command, he lands on Rutulian soil. So now I do come. Kneeling before the godhead I adore, begging weapons from my Aeneas, a mother for her son. Remember Aurora, Tithonus' wife, and Nereus' daughter? Both wept and you gave way. Look at the armies massing, cities bolting their gates, honing swords against me to cut my loved ones down. No more words. The goddess threw her snow-white arms around him as he held back, caressing him here and there, and suddenly he caught fire. The same old story. The flame he knew by heart went running through him, melting him to the marrow of his bones. As thunder at times will split the sky and a trail of fire goes rippling through the clouds, flashing blinding light, and his wife sensed it all, delighting in her bewitching ways. She knew her beauty's power. And Father Vulcan, enthralled by Venus, his everlasting love replied, Why plumb the past for appeals? Where has it gone, goddess, the trust you lodged in me? If only you'd been so passionate for him then as now, we would have been in our rights to arm the Trojans even then. Neither Father Almighty nor the Fates were dead against Troy's standing any longer, or Priam is living on for 10 more years. But now, if you are gearing up for war, your mind's set. Whatever my pains and all my skills can promise, whatever molten electrum and iron can bring to life, whatever the bellows' fiery blast can do, enough. Don't pray to me now. Never doubt your powers. With those words on his lips, he gave his wife the embraces both desired. Then sinking limp on her breast, he courted peaceful sleep that stole throughout his body. And then, when the first deep rest had driven sleep away, and the chariot of night had wheeled past mid-career, that hour a housewife rises, faced with scratching out a living with loom, and Minerva's homespun crafts, and rakes the ashes first to awake the sleeping fires, adding night to her working hours, and sets her women toiling on at long day's chores by torchlight, and all to keep the bed of her husband chaste, and rear her little boys, so early, briskly, in such good time the fire god rises up from his downy bed to labor at his forge. Not far from Aeolian Lipari, flanked by Sicily's coast, an island of smoking boulders surges from the sea. Deep below it a vast cavern thunders, hollowed out like vaults under Etna, forming the Cyclops' forges. You can hear the groaning anvils boom with mighty strokes, the hot steel ingots, screeching steam in the cavern's troughs, and fires panting hard in the furnace, Vulcan's home. It bears the name Vulcania. Here the fire god dove from heaven's heights. The Cyclops were forging iron now in the huge cave. Thunder and lightning and fire, anvils stripped bare. They had in hand a bolt they had just hammered out, one of the countless bolts the Father rains on earth from the arching sky, part buffed already, part still rough. 3 shafts of jagged hail they'd riveted out on that weapon, 3 of bursting storm clouds, 3 of blood-red flame, and the south wind winging fast. They welded into the work like blood-curdling flashes, crackling thunder, terror and rage in hot pursuit. Others were pressing on, forging in chariots whirling wheels from Mars, to harrow men and panic towns in war. Others were finishing off the dreaded Aegis, donned by Pallas Athena, blazing up in arms, outdoing themselves with burnished gilded scales, with serpents coiling, writhing around each other, the Gorgon herself, the severed head, the rolling eyes, the breastplate forged to guard the goddess's chest. Pack it away, he shouts. Whatever you've started, set it aside. My Cyclops of Etna, bend to this. Armor must be forged for a man of courage. Now for strength, you need it. Now for flying hands. Now for mastery, all your skill. Cast delay to the winds. Enough said. At a stroke they all pitched into the work, dividing the labors, share and share alike. And bronze is running rivers and flesh tearing steel, and gold ore melting down in the giant furnace. They are forging one tremendous shield, one against all the Latin spears, welding 7 plates, circular rim to rim. And some are working the bellows, sucking the air in, blasting it out, while others are plunging hissing bronze in the brimming troughs, the ground of the cavern groaning under the anvils' weight, and the Cyclops raising their arms with all their power, arms up, arms down to the drumming, pounding beat as they twist the molten mass in gripping tongs. While Vulcan, the lord of Lemnos, spurs the work below that Aeolian coast, the life-giving light and birdsong under the eaves at crack of dawn awake Evander from sleep in his humble lodge. The old man rises, pulls a tunic over his chest and binds his Etruscan sandals round his feet. Over his right shoulder, down his flank he straps an Arcadian sword, swirling back the skin of a panther to drape his left side. For company, 2 watchdogs go loping on before him over the high door sill, friends to their master's steps. He makes his way to the private quarters of his guest, Aeneas, the old veteran bearing in mind their recent talk and the help that he had promised. Just as early, Aeneas is stirring too. One comes with his son, Pallas, the other brings Aeneid. They meet and grasp right hands, and sitting there in the open court, are free at last to indulge in frank discussion. The old king starts in. Greatest chief of the Trojans, for while you are alive, I'll never consider Troy and its kingdom conquered. Our power to reinforce you in war is slight, though I know our name is great. Here the Tiber cuts us off, and there the Rutulians close the vice. The clang of their armor echoes round our walls. But I mean to ally you now with mighty armies, vast encampments filled with royal forces, your way to safety revealed by unexpected luck. It's fate that called you on to reach our shores. Now, not far from here, Agila city stands, founded on age-old rock by Lydian people once, brilliant in war, who built on Etruscan hilltops. This city flowered for many years till King Mezentius came to power, his brutal rule, barbaric force of arms. Why recount his unspeakable murders, savage crimes, the tyrant? God store up such pains for his own head and all his sons. Why, he'd even bind together dead bodies and living men, couple them tightly, hand to hand and mouth to mouth. What torture! Some in that poison, oozing putrid slime, they'd die by inches, locked in their brute embrace. Then at last, at the end of their rope, his people revolt against that raving madman. They besiege Mezentius and his palace, hack his henchmen down, and fling fire on his roof. In all this slaughter he slips away, taking flight to Rutulian soil, shielded by Turnus' armies, his old friend. So all Etruria rises up in righteous fury, demanding the king, threatening swift attack. Thousands, Aeneas, and I will put you in command. Their fleet is massed on the shore, and a low roar grows, men crying for battle standards now. But an aged prophet holds them back, singing out his song of destiny. You elite Lydian troops, fine flower of courage, born of an ancient race. Oh, what just resentment whips you into battle. Mezentius makes you burn with well-earned rage. But still the gods forbid an Italian commander to lead a race so great. Choose leaders from overseas. At that, the Etruscan fighting ranks subsided, checked on the field of battle, struck with awe by the warnings of the gods. Tarchon himself has sent me envoys, bearing the crown and scepter, offering me the ensigns, urging, "Join our camp, take the Etruscan throne." Ah, but old age, sluggish cold, played out with the years, has me in its grip, denies me the command. My strength is too far gone for feats of arms. I'd urge my son to accept, but his blood is mixed, half Sabine, thanks to his mother, and so Italian. You are the one whose age and breed the fates approve, the one the powers call. March out on your mission, bravest chief of the Trojans, now the Italians too. What's more, I will pair you with Pallas, my hope, my comfort. Under your lead, let him grow hard to his soldier's life and the rough work of war. Let him get used to watching you in action, admire you as his model from his youth. To him I will give 200 horsemen now, fighting hearts of oak, our best, and Pallas will give you 200 more, in Pallas' name. He had barely closed, and Anchises' son, Aeneas, the trusty Aeneas, their eyes fixed on the ground, would long have worried deep in their anxious hearts if Venus had not given a sign from the cloudless sky. A bolt of lightning suddenly splits the heavens, drumming thunder. The world seems to fall in a flash. The blare of Etruscan trumpets blasting through the sky. They look up. The terrific peals come crashing over and over and see blood red in a brilliant sky, rifting a cloud bank, armor clashing out. All the troops were dumbstruck, all but the Trojan hero. Well he knew that sound, his goddess mother's promise, and he calls out, "Don't ask, my friend, don't ask me, I beg you, what these portents bring. The heavens call for me. My goddess mother promised to send me this sign if war were breaking out, and bring me armor down through the air, forged by Vulcan himself to speed me on in battle. But, oh dear gods, what slaughter threatens the poor Laurentine people? What a price in bloodshed, Turnus, you will pay me soon. How many shields and helmets and corpses of the brave you'll churn beneath your tides, old Father Tiber. All right then, you Rutulians, beg for war. Break your pacts of peace." Fighting words. Aeneas rises from his high seat, and first he rakes the fires asleep on Hercules' altar, then gladly goes to the lowly gods of hearth and home he worshipped just the day before. Evander himself and his new Trojan allies share alike, slaughter yearling sheep as the old rite demands. And next Aeneas returns to his ships and shipmates, picks the best and bravest to take his lead in war, while the rest glide on at ease. No oars required, as the river's current bears them on downstream to bring Ascanius news of his father and his affairs. Horses go to the Trojans bound for Tuscan fields, and march for Aeneas, a special mount decked out in a tawny lion's skin that gleams with gilded claws. A sudden rumor flies through the little town. Horsemen are rushing toward the Tuscan monarch's gates. Mothers struck with terror pray and re-echo prayers. The fear builds as the deadly peril comes closer. The specter of war looms larger, ever larger. Evander, seizing the hand of his departing son, clinging, weeping inconsolably, cries out, "If only Jove would give me back the years, all gone, and make me the man I was." Killing the front ranks just below Praeneste's ramparts, heaping up their shields, torching them in my triumph, my right hand had sent great King Euryalus down to hell. 3 lives his mother Feronia gave him at his birth. I shudder to say it now. 3 suits of armor for action. 3 times I had to lay him low, but my right hand then, stripped him of all his lives, and all his armor too. Oh, if only, then no force could ever tear me now from your dear embrace, my boy, nor could Mezentius ever have trod his neighbor Evander down, butchered so many, bereaved our city, so many widows left. But you powers above, and you, Jupiter, highest lord of the gods, pity, I implore you, a king of Arcadia. Hear a father's prayers. If your commands will keep my palace safe, and if the fates intend to preserve my son, and if I live to see him, join him again, why then I pray for life. I can suffer any pain on earth, but if you are threatening some disaster, fortune, Let me break this brutal life off now. Now, while anxieties waver and hopes for the future fade. While you, my beloved boy, my lone delight come lately, I still hold you in my embrace. Oh, let no graver news arrive and pierce my ears. So at their last parting, the words came pouring deep from Evander's heart. He collapsed, and his servants bore him quickly into the house. And even now the cavalry had come riding forth through the open gates, Aeneas out in the lead, flanked by trusty Aeneid, then other Trojan captains, with Pallas in command of the column's center. Pallas brilliant in battle cape and glittering inlaid armor. Bright as the morning star whom Venus loves above all the burning stars on high, when up from his ocean bath he lifts his holy face to the lofty skies and dissolves away the darkness. Mothers stand on the ramparts trembling, eyes trailing the cloud of dust and the troops in gleaming bronze. Over the brush, the quickest route, cross-country, armored fighters ride. Cries go up, squadrons form, galloping hoofbeats drum the rutted plain with thunder. Next to Cares' icy river, a huge grove stands, held in ancestral awe by people far and wide. On all sides cupped round by sheltering hills and ringed by pitch-dark pines. The story goes that ancient Pelasgians, first in time long past to settle the Latian borders, solemnized the grove, and a festal day to Silvanus, god of fields and flocks. Not far from here, Tarchon and his Etruscans mustered, all secure, and now from the hills his entire army could be seen encamped on the spreading plain. Down come Captain Aeneas and all his fighters picked for battle. Water their horses well, and weary troops take rest. But the goddess Venus, lustrous among the cloud banks, bearing her gifts, approached, and when she spotted her son alone, off in a glade's recess by the frigid stream, she hailed him, suddenly there before him. Look, just forged to perfection by all my husband's skill, the gifts I promised. There's no need now, my son, to flinch from fighting swaggering Latin ranks or challenging savage Turnus to a duel. With that, Venus reached to embrace her son and set the brilliant armor down before him under a nearby oak. Aeneas takes delight in the goddess's gifts and the honor of it all as he runs his eyes across them piece by piece. He cannot get enough of them, filled with wonder, turning them over now with his hands, now his arms, the terrible crested helmet plumed and shooting fire, the sword blade honed to kill, the breastplate, solid bronze, blood red and immense, like a dark blue cloud inflamed by the sun's rays and gleaming through the heavens. Then the burnished greaves of electrum, smelted gold, the spear and the shield, the workmanship of the shield, no words can tell its power. There is the story of Italy, Rome and all her triumphs. There the fire god forged them, well aware of the seers and schooled in times to come, all in order the generations born of Ascanius' stock, and all the wars they waged. And Vulcan forged them too, the mother wolf stretched out in the green grotto of Mars, twin boys at her dugs, who hung there, frisky, suckling without a fear as she with her lithe neck bent back, stroking each in turn, licked her wolf pups into shape with a mother's tongue. Not far from there he had forged Rome as well, and the Sabine women brutally dragged from the crowded bull, when the circus games were played and abruptly war broke out afresh, the sons of Romulus battling old King Tatius's hardened troops from Curies. Then when the same chiefs had set aside their strife, they stood in full armor before Jove's holy altar, lifting cups, and slaughtered a sow to bind their packs. Nearby, two four-horse chariots, driven to left and right, had torn Metis apart, man of Alba. You should have kept your word, and Tullus hauled the liar's viscera through the brush, as blood drops dripped like dew from brakes of thorns. Porsena there, commanding Romans to welcome banished Tarquin back, mounted a massive siege to choke the city. Aeneas' heirs rushing headlong against the steel in freedom's name. See Porsena to the life, his likeness menacing, raging, and why. Hercules dared to rip the bridge down. Cloelia burst her chains and swam the flood. Crowning the shield, guarding the fort atop the Tarpeian rock, Manlius stood there before the temple, held the capital's heights. The new thatch bristled thick on Romulus's palace roof, and here the silver goose went ruffling through the gold arcades, squawking, its warning. Gauls attacked the gates. Gauls swarming the thickets, about to seize the fortress, shielded by shadows, gift of the pitch-dark night. Gold their flowing hair, their war-dress gold, striped capes glinting, their milky necks ringed with golden chokers, pairs of alpine pikes in their hands, flashing like fire, and long shields wrapped their bodies. Here Vulcan pounded out the Sally, dancing priests of Mars, Luperci stripped, their peak caps wound with wool, bearing their body shields that dropped from heaven, and chaste matrons, riding in pillowed coaches, led the sacred marches through the city. Far apart on the shield, what's more, he forged the homes of hell, the high gates of death and the torments of the doomed, with you, Catiline, dangling from a beetling crag, cringing before the Furies' open mouths. And set apart the virtuous souls, with Cato giving laws. And amidst it all, the heaving sea ran far and wide, its likeness forged in gold, but the blue deep foamed in a sheen of whites, and rounding it out in a huge ring swam the dolphins, brilliant in silver, tails sweeping the crests to cut the waves in two. And here in the heart of the shield, the bronze ships, the battle of Actium, you could see it all. The world drawn up for war, Leucada headland, seething, the breakers molten gold. On one flank, Caesar Augustus leading Italy into battle, the Senate and people too, the gods of hearth and home, and the great gods themselves. High astern he stands, the twin flames shoot forth from his lustrous brows, rising from the peak of his head, his father's star. On the other flank, Agrippa stands tall as he steers his ships in line, impelled by favoring winds and gods, and from his forehead glitter the beaked ships of war on the naval crown. Proud ensign, earned in war. And opposing them comes Antony, leading on the riches of the Orient, troops of every stripe, victor over the nations of the dawn and blood-red shores, and in his retinue Egypt, all the might of the East, and Bactria, the end of the earth, and trailing in his wake that outrage, that Egyptian wife. All launch in as one, whipping the whole sea to foam with tugging, thrashing oars and cleaving triple beaks as they make a run for open sea. You'd think the Cyclades ripped up by the roots, afloat on the swells, or mountains ramming against mountains. So immense the turrets astern as sailors attack them, showering flaming tow and hot bolts of flying steel, and the fresh blood running red on Neptune's fields. And there in the thick of it all the queen is mustering her armada, clacking her native rattles, still not glimpsing the twin vipers hovering at her back, as Anubis barks and the queen's chaos of monster gods train their spears on Neptune, Venus, and great Minerva. And there in the heart of battle Mars rampages on, cast in iron, with grim furies plunging down the sky, and strife and triumph rushing in with her slashed robes, and Belena cracking her bloody lash in hot pursuit. And scanning the melee high on Actium's heights, Apollo bent his bow and terror struck them all. Egypt and India, all the Arabians, all the Sabaeans wheeled in their tracks and fled, and the queen herself, you could see her calling, tempting the winds, her sails spreading, and now about to let her sheets run free. Here in all this carnage the god of fire forged her pale with imminent death, sped on by the tides and northwest wind, and rising up before her, the Nile immersed in mourning opens every fold of his mighty body, all his rippling robes, inviting into his deep blue lap in secret eddies all his conquered people. But Caesar in triple triumph, borne home through the walls of Rome, was paying eternal vows of thanks to the gods of Italy. 300 imposing shrines throughout the city. The roads resounded with joy, revelry, clapping hands, with bands of matrons in every temple, altars in each, and the ground before them strewn with slaughtered steers. Caesar himself, throned at brilliant Apollo's snow-white gates, reviews the gifts brought on by the nations of the earth, and he mounts them high on the lofty temple doors as the vanquished people move in a long, slow file, their dress, their arms as motley as their tongues. Here Vulcan had forged the nomad race, the Africans with their trailing robes. Here the Leleges, Carians, Galonian archers bearing quivers, Euphrates flowing now with a humbler tide, the Morini brought from the world's end, the two-horned Rhine, the Dahi never conquered, Araxes river bridling at its bridge. Such vistas the god of fire forged across the shield that Venus gives her son. He fills with wonder, he knows nothing of these events, but takes delight in their likeness, lifting onto his shoulders now the fame and fates of all his children's children. Book 9. Enemy at the Gates. Now, while off in the distance much was underway, Saturnian Juno hurried Iris down from the sky to Turnus brash in arms, seated them by chance in a hallowed glen, his forebear, Pilumnus' grove. The messenger with the rosy lips bestirred the king. Turnus, what no god would dare to promise you, the answer to your prayers. Time in its rounds has brought you all unasked. Yes, Aeneas has quit his camp, his comrades in his fleet. He's lighted out for the Palatine Hill, Evander's royal home. But still not satisfied, he's made his way to the farthest towns of Corythus, arming a band of Tuscans. Country folk he's mustered. Why hold back? Now's the time for horse and chariot. Away with delay. Attack their shattered camp. She towered into the sky on balanced wings, cleaving a giant rainbow, flying beneath the clouds. And Turnus knew her and raised both his hands to the stars, calling after the goddess, trailing her flight with cries. Iris, pride of the sky, who has sped you here to me, swooping down from the clouds to reach the earth? Why this sudden radiance lighting the heavens? I can see the clouds parting, the stars riding the arching skies. I follow a sign so clear, whoever you are who calls me into action. In that spirit he went to the river's edge, drew pure water up from the brimming banks, and prayed to the gods over and over, weighing down the heavens with his vows. And next his entire army was moving out across the plain, rich in cavalry, rich in braided cloaks, bright gold. Messapus heads the column, the rear is brought up by the sons of Tyrrhus. Turnus commands the center, a force like the Ganges rising, fed by 7 quiet streams, or the life-giving Nile ebbing back from the plains, to settle down at last in its own banks and bed. Suddenly, far off, a massive dust cloud rises, black as night, darkness sweeping across the plain. The Trojans spot it, and first from the landward wall, Cacus calls out, "What's that mass, my countrymen? Blackness rolling toward us. Quick, take arms. Pass out weapons, mount the walls. The enemy's all but on us. Battle stations." With a deafening roar, the Trojans all come pouring in through the gates for shelter. Mount the ramparts now. So ran his parting orders, Aeneas, best of captains. If any crisis comes while I am away, don't risk a pitched battle, no. Don't trust to the open field. Just guard the camp and ramparts, safe behind the walls. So, though shame and anger spur them to all-out war, still they bar the gates. They follow their orders, armed to the hilt, protected inside the turrets, bracing for the foe. But Turnus, flying on ahead of his slower column, flanked by a picked troop of 20 horsemen, gains the tower in no time. Borne by a Thracian charger blazed with white, and helmed in his golden casque with crimson crest. Who's with me, men? Who's first to attack the enemy? Just watch. He cries and hurls his javelin into the sky, the opening shot of war. And high in his saddle races down the plain as his shouting comrades speed him on, riding in his wake with their war cries striking terror, amazed at the Trojans' bloodless hearts, and calling, no trusting themselves to a level field of battle, no braving our infantry grappling hand to hand, the cowards cling to camp. Wildly, back and forth, Turnus gallops along the walls. A way in? No way in. As the wolf prowling in wait round some crowded sheepfold, bearing the wind and rain in the dead of night, howls at chinks in the fence, and the lambs keep bleeding on, snug beneath their dams. The wolf rages, desperate. How can he maul a quarry out of reach? Exhausted, frenzied with belling hunger, starved for so long, his jaws parched for blood. So wildly Turnus, scanning the camp and rampart, flares in anger. Brute resentment sears him to the bone. What tactic to try to make a breakthrough? How to shake those penned-up Trojans clear of their walls and strew them down the plain? The armada, there. Hard by the camp it lay tied up, riding at anchor, shielded round by the high redoubts and river currents. Here he attacks, shouting out to his cheering comrades, "Bring the fire." A man on fire, he seizes a blazing pine-tar torch in his fist, and now, watch, his men pitch into the work as Turnus urges them on in person, and whole battalions equip themselves with smoking brands. They've plundered the hearth fires. Sooty torches ignite a murky glare. The god of fire hurls at the skies a swirl of sparks and ash. What god, you muses, warded off such savage flames from the Trojans? Who drove from the ships such raging fire? Tell me. Trust in the tale is old, yet its fame will never die. In the early days on Phrygian Ida's slopes, when Aeneas first built his fleet, gearing up for the high seas, they say the Berecynthian mother of gods herself appealed to powerful Jove with pleading words. Grant this prayer, my son, that your loving mother makes to you, since now you rule on Olympus's heights. I had a grove on the mountain's crest, where men would bring me gifts, a pinewood loved for long, dark with pitch pine, shady with maple timber. These woods I gladly gave the Dardan prince, when the prince lacked fleet. Now dread and anguish have me in their grip. Dissolve my tears. Let a mother's prayers prevail. May these galleys never be wrecked on any passage out or overpowered by whirling storms at sea. Let their birth on our mountains be a blessing. Her son, who makes the starry world go round, replied, Mother, what are you asking fate to grant? What privilege are you begging for your ships? Think. Should keels laid by a mortal hand enjoy an immortal's rights? Should Aeneas go through scathing dangers all unscathed? Aeneas? What god commands such power? Nevertheless, one day, when their tour of duty is done at last, and they moor in a western haven, all the ships that survived the waves and bore the Trojan prince to Latium's fields, I will strip them of mortal shape and command them all to be goddesses of the deep, like Dido, Nereus' daughter, and Galatea too, breasting high, cleaving the frothing waves. Jove had spoken. Sealing his pledge by the Styx, his brother's stream, by the banks that churn with pitch-black rapids, whirlpools swirling dark, he nodded his assent, and his nod made all of Mount Olympus quake. And so, the promised day had arrived, and the fates filled out the assigned time, when Turnus' rampage warned the mother to drive his brands from her consecrated ships. And first the strange radiance flashed in all eyes, and a great cloud appearing out of the dawn came sweeping down the sky, trailed by the goddess's dancing troops from Ida. Then an awesome voice descended through the air, surrounding the Trojan and Rutulian ranks alike. No frantic rush to defend my ships, you Trojans, no rising up in arms. Turnus can sooner burn the ocean dry than burn these sacred pines of mine. Run free, my ships. Run, you nymphs of the sea. Your mother commands you now. And all at once, each vessel snapping her cables free of the bank, they dive like dolphins, plunging headlong beaks to the bottom's depths. Then up they surface, turned into lovely virgins. Wondrous omen, each a sea nymph sweeping out to sea. The Rutulians shrank in panic. Messapus himself was stunned with terror. His stallions reared, and the river, roaring, checked its currents. Tiber summoned his outflow back from open sea. But dauntless Turnus never loses faith in his daring. He flares up more at his men, inflaming their spirits more. All these omens threatened the Trojans. Jove himself was whisked away, their trusted line of defense. No waiting for us, the Rutulians sword and torch to strike their ships. So now the open sea is blocked to the Trojans. No escape, no hope. They're robbed of half the world, and the other half, dry land, is in our grasp. So many thousand Italians take up arms. All their fateful oracles, words from the gods these Phrygians bandy about, alarm me not at all. Let it be quite enough for fate and Venus both, that Trojans reach the rich green land of Italy, Trojans. I have my own fate too, counter to theirs, to stamp out these accursed people with my sword. They've stolen away my bride. Atreus' sons, they're not alone in suffering such a wound. Not only Mycenae has a right to go to war. To die once is enough? The crime they committed once should be enough, if only they hated most of all womankind so deeply. These Trojans who borrow courage, build their trust on the walls they raise, the ditch they dig between us, what a flimsy buffer to shield them all from slaughter. Haven't they seen Troy's ramparts, built by Neptune's hands, collapse in flames? But you, my elite ones, who is ready to hack the ramparts down with a sword, join me now and storm their panicked camp. I have no use for all the armor Vulcan forged, nor for 1,000 ships to go against these Trojans. Let all the Etruscans join them at once as allies. They need not fear our stealing up on them in the dark like skulking cowards to rob them of their palladium, butcher their sentries posted on the heights. No hiding ourselves away in a horse's blind dark flanks. In naked daylight, I am determined now to ring their walls with fire. I'll make certain they never think they're fighting Greek and Pelasgian boys, the recruits that Hector warded off 10 years. But now, my comrades, seeing the best part of the day is done, for the rest, refresh yourselves, hearts high. You've done good work, and trust to it now. We're heading for a battle. All the while, Messapus is ordered to cordon off the gates with a sentry line and gird the walls with fire. 14 Rutilians are picked to guard the ramparts, each commanding 100 troops, their helmets crested with purple plumes, their war gear glinting gold. They scatter to posts and man the watch by turns, or stretching out on the grass, enjoy their wine, tilting the bronze bowls while the fires burn on, and the watchmen dice away a sleepless night. Scanning all of this from the walls aloft, the Trojans hold the heights with men-at-arms, while edgy, anxious, they reinforce the gates, building bulwarks, joining ramps to the outworks, bringing weapons up. Menestheus, fierce Orestes are spurring on the work, the men whom Captain Aeneas charged, should crisis call, to marshal troops in ranks and take command of the outpost. The whole army is on guard, tents along the walls. With perilous posts assigned, they stand watch by turns, each fighter defending what he must defend. Now, Nisus guarded a gate. Matchless in battle, Hercules' son, Aeneas' comrade. Ida the huntress sent him, quick as the wind with spears and winging arrows, and right beside him came his friend, Euryalus. None more winning among Aeneas' soldiers, none who strapped on Trojan armor, a young boy sporting the first down of manhood, cheeks unshaved. One love bound them, side by side they'd rushed to attack, so now standing the same watch, they held one gate. Euryalus, Nisus asks, do the gods light this fire in our hearts, or does each man's mad desire become his god? For a while now cravings urge me on, to swing into action, some great exploit. No peace and quiet for me. See those Rutilians? What trust they put in their own blind luck. Watch fires flickering far apart, men sprawling, sunk in their wine and sleep, dead silence all around. Now listen to what I'm mulling over, what new plan is shaping in my mind. The people, the elders all demand that Aeneas be recalled, and men dispatched to tell him how the land lies. If they promised you my reward, the fame of the work's enough for me. I think I can just make out a path under that hill, to Pallanteum's city walls. Euryalus froze, his heart pounding with love of praise, and he checks his fiery friend at once. So, Nisus, grudging your friend a share in your fine exploit, I'm to send you out alone into so much danger? That's not how father, the old soldier, Opheltes, brought me up in the thick of the Greek terror, the death throes at Troy. Nor has it been my way, soldiering on beside you, following out the fate of great-hearted Aeneas, right to the bitter end. Here is a heart that spurns the light, that counts the honor you're after cheap at the price of life. No, Nisus insisted. I'd no such qualm about you. How wrong I'd be. Just let great Jove or whatever god looks down with friendly eyes on what we do carry me back to you in triumph. But if, and you often see such things in risky straits, if anything sends me down to death, some god, some twist of fate, you must live on, I say. You're young. Your life's worth more than mine. Let someone commit my body to the earth, snatch from battle or ransom back for gold. Or if fortune, up to her old tricks, denies me rights, pay them when I am gone and honor me with a hollow tomb. Nor would I cause your mother so much grief, dear boy. She alone, out of so many Trojan mothers, dared to follow you all the way. She had no love for great Acestes' city. Euryalus countered, "You're spinning empty arguments, they won't work. No, my mind won't change, won't budge an inch. Let's be gone." With that, he stirs the sentries and up they march to take their turn on watch. Leaving his post, he and his comrade Nisus stride off to find the prince. Across the earth, all other creatures were stretched out in sleep, easing their cares, their spirits blank to hardship. But the leading Trojan chiefs, the chosen men of rank, were holding a council now on grave affairs of state. What should they do? Who will take word to Aeneas? There they stand, out on the open campgrounds, leaning on spears, hands at rest on shields. When rush Nisus and Euryalus side by side, clamoring for admittance, being heard at once. We've something urgent, well worth your while. So intense that Aeolus was first to welcome both, inviting Hercules' son to speak, and so we did. Men of Aeneas, hear us out with open minds. Don't judge what we say by our young years. The enemies sunken deep in sleep and wine, dead to the world. There's a place for mischief, we've seen it ourselves. An open fork in the road, the gate that fronts the coast. It's dark there, gaps in their watchfires, smoke blackens the sky. Give us this chance to make our way to Aeneas, Pallantium too, and you'll soon see us back, loaded with spoils, some bloody killing done. The road won't play us false, hunting the dark glens day after day. We've scoured the city's outposts, reconnoitered every bend in the river. Allecto, bowed with the years, a seasoned advisor, cried out, "Gods of our fathers, Troy's eternal shield. So you're not about to destroy us root and branch, not if you plant such courage, such resolve in our young soldiers' hearts." He grasped them both by the hands and hugged their shoulders, tears rivering down his cheeks. "For you, good men, what reward can I find to equal the noble work you're set on? First and best the gods will give, and your own sense of worth. The rest the thankful Aeneas will repay at once, and young Ascanius too. As long as he lives, he'll never forget such meritorious service." "Never," Ascanius steps in. "My life depends on father's safe return. By our great household gods, by Acericus' hearth god and white-haired Vesta's shrine, I swear to you both, Nisus, all my hope, my fortune lies in your laps alone. Just call father back, bring him back to my eyes. If he returns, all griefs are gone. 2 cups I'll give you, struck in silver, ridged with engraving. Father took them both when Arisba fell. And a pair of tripods, 2 large bars of gold, and a wine bowl full of years, Dido of Sidon's gift. But if, in fact, we recapture Italy, seize the scepter in triumph, allot the plunder, you've seen the stallion Turnus rides, the armor he sports, all gold, that mount, the shield, the blood-red plumes, I exempt from the lot. Your trophies, Nisus, now. Also, father will give 12 women, beauties all, and a dozen captive soldiers, each in armor more, whatever lands their king Latinus claims for himself. But you, Euryalus, who outstrip me by a year, I admire you. I receive you with all my heart. Through thick and thin embrace you as my comrade. Never without you, when I am bent on glory, whether in word or action, peace or war, you have my trust forever." Euryalus replied, "No day will show me unequal to such brave work, if only the dice of fortune fall out well, not badly. But topping all your gifts, I beg you, just one more. My mother, of Priam's ancient stock, poor woman, neither the land of Troy could hold her back, setting sail with me, nor King Acestes' city. Now I leave her, unaware of the risk I run, whatever it is, with no parting words because I swear by the night and your right hand. I cannot bear the sight of my mother's tears. But you, I beg you, comfort her in her frailty, brace her in desolation. Let me carry this hope of you, and all the bolder I go to face the worst. The Trojans were moved to tears, handsome Euryalus the most of all. Touched by love for his own father, this image stirred his heart. Trust me, he said, all I do will be worthy of your great exploit. Your mother will be mine in all but the name, Creusa. No small thanks awaits the one who bore such a son. Whatever comes of your exploit, I swear by my life, the oath my father used to take. All I promise you on your return in glory, the same rewards await your mother and your kin. He weeps as he speaks and draws from his shoulder strap a sword of gold. Forged by one Lycaon of Crete, marvelous work, fitted with ivory sheath and set for action. Mnestheus hands Nisus a fine shaggy hide stripped from a lion, and trusty old Aeneas exchanges helmets with him. Now, both armed, they move out at once, and as they go, an escort of ranking Trojans, warriors young and old, sees them off at the gates with many prayers. Yet first the handsome Euryalus, beyond his years, filled with a man's courage, a man's concerns as well, gives them many messages to carry to his father. But the winds scatter them all useless, fling them into the clouds. Now out they go, crossing the trench and threading through the dark, heading toward the enemy camp, destined to die but make a bloodbath first. Bodies everywhere. They can see them stretched in the grasses, sunk in a drunken stupor, chariot poles tipped on shore, bodies of fighters trapped in the wheels and harness, weapons and wine cups too are strewn about. And Nisus speaks up first. Euryalus, now for the daring sword hand. Now the moment calls. Here's the way. You keep guard at our back, so no patrol can attack us from the rear. You be on the alert, a hawk's eye all around. I'll make a slaughter, cut you a good clean swath. Nisus breaks off as he plants his sword in lofty Rhamnes, propped up by chance on a pile of rugs, his chest puffed out and heaving, dead asleep, a king himself, King Turnus' favorite prophet. But no prophecy now could save him from his death. 3 aides at his side the Trojan killed, off guard, sprawled in a snarl of arms, then Remus's armor-bearer, then his charioteer. He caught him under his horse's hoofs. He hacks their lolling necks and lops the head of their master, leaves the trunk of him spouting blood. The earth and bedding warmed with a wet black gore. He cuts down Lamyrus too, Lamus and Serranus, well-built soldier. He'd gamed away till late at night and now lay numb in a drunken haze. Lucky man, if only he'd stretched his gambling through the night and played it out till dawn. Nisus, wild as a starved lion raging through crowded pens as the hunger drives him mad, and he mangles sheep, dumb with terror, rips to shreds their tender flesh and roars from bloody jaws. No less bloody Euryalus' work. The man's on fire, storming down on the common ruck before him. Fatus, Urbasus, Rhetus, Aberus, quite unconscious now. But Rhetus, waking, witnessed it all and cowered, crouching behind an enormous mixing bowl. But Euryalus pounced as Rhetus rose. He rushed him, drove a sword in his heart, up to the hilt, then wrenched it back, dripping death. Rhetus vomits his red lifeblood, spewing out gore and wine mixed with a man's last gasp. But still Euryalus glowed with a killer's stealth. He was stalking near Messapus' henchman now. He could spot the outer campfires flickering low and horses tethered securely, grazing grass, the cavalry, when Nisus, sensing his comrade run amuck with bloodlust, cuts him short. Call it quits. The dawn's at hand, our old foe. Enough revenge. We've hacked a path through enemy lines. Enough. They leave behind a hall of soldiers' armor struck in solid silver, mixing bowls in the bargain, gorgeous rugs. But Euryalus tears off Rhamnes' battle emblems and gold-studded belt, gifts that lavish Cacus once sent Remulus of Tiber, hoping to seal a pact with a friend then far away, and Remulus dying, passed them on to his grandson, and once he died, the Latins commandeered them in battle, spoils of war. Euryalus seizes them, fits them onto his gallant shoulders, all for nothing. He dons Messapus' helmet crested with tossing plumes. The raiders quit the camp and race for safety. But just then a troop of cavalry sent on ahead from the Latin city. The rest of the army awaits, poised on the plain, comes riding in with messages for King Turnus. 300 strong, all men bearing shields, with Vulcans in command. Just nearing the camp, just coming up the earthworks, when they spot at a distance 2 men swerving off to the left. The helmet, Euryalus forgot. It glints in the dark. It gives him away. It's caught in a shaft of moonlight, a sight not lost on Vulcans, shouting out from the vanguard. Soldiers halt. Why on the road in armor? Who are you? Where are you headed? No answer given. Off they scurry into the woods and trust to night. But the troopers fan out left and right, blocking the well-known paths. The sentries ring all ways out. The dense woods spread far. The thickets and black ilex bristle. Briars crowd the entire place, with a rare track showing a faint trace through the thick blind glades. The dark branches, the heft of the plunder, all weighed down Euryalus. Far leads him astray in the tangled paths. But Nisus gets away, unthinkingly flees the foe to a place called Albin later, named for Alba then, a spot where Latinus kept his sturdy sheepfolds. Here Nisus halts, looking back for his lost friend. No use. My poor Euryalus, where did I lose you? Where can I find you now? Nisus already picks his way, wheeling, groping back through the whole deceptive wood, retracing, scouring his tracks through the silent brush. He hears hoofbeats, hears the commotion, orders, hot pursuit. The next moment a cry hits his ears, and look, Euryalus, caught by the full band, undone by the dark, the place, the treachery, sudden crashing attack. He's overwhelmed. They're dragging him off, struggling, desperate, doomed. What can Nisus do? How can he save his young friend? What force, weapons, what bold stroke? Pitch himself at the swords and die at once? Race through wounds to a swift and noble death? Quickly cocking his arm, his lance brandished high, he cranes up at the moon and prays his heart out. You goddess, Latina's daughter, stand by me now. Help me now in the thick of danger, glory of stars, guard of the groves. If Father Hercules ever gave you gifts in my name to grace your altars, if I have ever adorned them with hunting trophies, hanging them from your dome, fixing them to your roofs, help me rout my enemies, wing my spears through the air. With that he hurled his spear, his whole body behind it, whirring on through the dark night. It flies at Sulmo, and striking his turn back it splits. Crack. And a splinter stabs his midriff through. He twists over, vomiting hot blood from his chest, chill with death, his flanks racked with his last gasps. The Rutulians reel, looking about, but now Nisus, all the bolder, watch, cocking another spear beside his ear as the enemy panics, hurls and the shaft goes hissing right through Tagus' brow, splitting it, sticking deep in the man's warm brains. Vulcan's burns with fury, stymied. Where can he find the one who threw it? Where can he aim his rage? No matter, he cries. Now you'll pay me in full with your hot blood for both my men. With that he rushes Euryalus, sword drawn, as Nisus terrified, frenzied. No more hiding in shadows. No enduring such anguish any longer. He breaks out. Me, here I am. I did it. Turn your blades on me, Rutulians. The crime's all mine. He never dared, could never do it. I swear by the skies up there, the stars, they know it all. All he did was love his unlucky friend too well. But while he begged, the sword goes plunging clean through Euryalus' ribs, cleaving open his white chest. He writhes in death as blood flows over his shapely limbs. His neck droops, sinking over his shoulder, limp as a crimson flower cut off by a passing plow, that droops as it dies, or frail as poppies, their necks weary, bending their heads when a sudden shower weighs them down. But Nisus storms the thick of them, out for Vulcan's, one among all. Vulcan's his lone concern. His enemies massing around him, trying to drive him back, left, right, but he keeps charging harder, swirling his lightning sword till facing Vulcan's, he sinks his blade in his screaming mouth. Nisus dying just as he stripped his enemy of his life. Then, riddled with wound on wound, he threw himself on his lifeless friend, and there in the still of death, found peace at last. How fortunate, both at once. If my songs have any power, the day will never dawn that wipes you from the memory of the ages, not while the house of Aeneas stands by the Capitol's rock unshaken, not while the Roman father rules the world. Triumphant, the Rutulians gathered their battle plunder, weeping now as they bore the lifeless body of Vulcan's back to camp. There they wept no less, finding Rhamnes bled white, and so many captains killed in one great slaughter. Serenus, Numa too, and a growing crowd cluster around the dead and dying men. And the ground lies warm with the recent massacre, rivulets foam with blood. Together they recognize the trophies of war, Messapus's burnished helmet, and many emblems retrieved with so much sweat. By now, early dawn had risen up from the saffron bed of Tithonus, scattering fresh light on the world. Sunlight flooded in, and the rays laid bare the earth as Turnus, fully armed himself, calls his men to arms. And each commander marshals his own troops for battle, squadrons sheathed in bronze, and whets their fury with mixed accounts of the last night's slaughter. They even impale the heads on brandished pikes, the heads, a grisly sight, and strut behind them, baiting them with outcries. Euryalus and Nisus. On the rampart's left wing, the river flanks the right, the hardened troops of Aeneas group in battle order, facing enemy lines and manning the broad trench or stationed up on the towers, wrung with sorrow, men stunned by the sight of men they know too well, their heads stuck on pike staffs, dripping gore. That moment, rumor, flown through the shaken camp, wings the news to the ears of Euryalus' mother. Suddenly warmth drains from her grief-stricken body. The shuttle's flung from her hand. The yarn unravels and off she flies, poor thing. Shrilling a woman's cries and tearing her hair, insane, she rushes onto the high walls, seeking the front ranks posted there, without a thought for the fighters, none for the perils, the spears, no. She fills the air with wails of mourning. You, is this you I see, Euryalus? You, the only balm of my old age? How could you leave me all alone, so cruel? When you set out on that deadly mission, couldn't your mother have said some last farewell? What a heartbreak, now you lie in an unknown land, fresh game for the dogs and burns of Latium. Nor did your own mother lead her son's cordage, or seal your eyes in death, or bathe your wounds, or shroud you round in the festive robe I wove, speeding the work for you, laboring day and night, lightening with a loom the pains of my old age. Where can I go? What patch of ground now holds your body cut to pieces, your mutilated corpse? This head, it's all you bring me back, my son? It's all that I followed, crossing land and sea. Stab me through, if you have any decency left. Whip all your lances into me, you Rutulians. Kill me first with steel. Or pity me, you, great father of gods, and whirl this hated body down to hell with a bolt, the only way I know to burst the chains of this brutal life. Her wails dashed their spirits. A spasm of sorrow went throbbing through them all. They were broken men, their lust for battle numbed. As she inflames their grief, Idaeus and Actor, ordered by Aeneas and Euryalus, weeping freely, cradle her in their arms and bear her back inside. A terrific brazen blast went blaring out from the trumpets far and wide, and war cries echo the horns, and the high sky resounds. And now the Volscians charge, ranks of them packing under a tortoise shell of shields, bent on filling the trenches, tearing down stockades. Some press hard for an entry, scaling the walls with ladders, wherever a gap shows in the thin defensive ring, and light breaks through all. The opposing Trojans fling down missiles, any and all, thrusting off the assault with rugged pikes, expert from their years of war at defending city ramparts. Great boulders they trundled down on the raiders, huge weights, trying to break their shielded troops, but under the tortoise shell they gladly take their blows. Yet they can't hold out. Wherever Rutulian massed for attack, the Trojans roll up immense rocks and heave them hurtling down, cracking their armored carapace, crush them, send them reeling, and now the bold Rutulians lose all zest for battle under a blind defensive shell. They struggle out in the open, flinging spears to clear the enemy ramparts. Here in another sector, Mezentius, grim sight, is shaking a Tuscan pine beam, hurling fire and smoky pitch at the foe as Messapus, breaker of horses, Neptune's son, is ripping open a rampart, shouting, "Ladders, scale the walls." I pray you, Calliope, muses, inspire me as I sing what carnage and death the sword of Turnus spread that day, what men each fighter speeded down to darkness. Come, help me unroll the massive scroll of war. Now a tower reared high, a commanding, salient point with rampways climbing up to it. All the Italians fought to storm it, full strength, straining to drag it down, full force, while Trojans jammed inside fought to defend it, barricade it with stones, hurling salvos of spears through gaping loopholes. Turnus, first to attack, whirled a flaming torch that stuck in the tower's flanks, and whipped by the wind it quickly seized on planking. Clinging fast to the doorway's posts, it ate away. Inside, panic, chaos, soldiers fighting to find some way out of the flames. No hope. Men went cramming back to the safe side, back from the killing heat, but under the sudden lurch of weight, the tower came toppling down, making the whole wide heaven thunder back its crash. Fighters writhed in death, crushed on the ground, the enormous wreckage right on top of them, yes, impaling them on their own weapons, stabbing splintered timbers through their chests. Only Helenor and Lycus slipped to safety. Just Helenor, still in the flesh of youth, a slave. Lacymnia bore him once to Maeonia's king in secret, sent him to Troy, light-armed in forbidden gear, a naked sword and a shield still blank, unblazoned. Now he found himself in the thick of Turnus's thousands, Latin battalions crowding, pressing at all points, as the wild beast snared in a closing ring of hunters, raging against their weapons, flings itself at death, staring doom in the face, leaping straight at the spears, just so wild the young soldier leaps at the enemy's center, rushing at death, where he sees the spearheads densest. But Lycus, far faster, escapes through the enemy lines and spears to reach the wall. Clawing up to the coping, trying to grasp his comrades' hands when Turnus, chasing him down with a lance, shouts in triumph, "Fool, you hope to escape my clutches?" Seizing him as he dangles, tearing the man down along with a hefty piece of wall. As the eagle that bears Jove's lightning snatches up in his hooking talons a hare or snow-white swan and towers into the sky, or the wolf of Mars that rips a lamb from the pens and its mother, desperate to find it, fills the air with bleating. War cries rising everywhere. On and on they charge, packing the trench with earth, some men hurling fiery torches onto the rooftops. Aeneas, heaving a huge crag of a rock, brings down Lucetius, just assaulting the gates with a flaming torch in hand as Liger kills Mathion. Aeschylus lays out Corneus, one adept with javelin, one with arrows blindsiding in from a distance. Caeneus kills Ortygius. Turnus, triumphant Caeneus. Turnus cuts down Idas, Clonius, Dioxippus, and Promulus. Sigarus, Idas, posted down in front of the steepest towers, and Capys kills Privernus. Themilus' spears grazed him first. He dropped his shield, the idiot, raised his hand to the gash as the arrow flew, and digging deep in his left side, deeper, burst the ducts of life breath with a deadly wound. There stood Arkansas' son, decked out in brilliant gear, and a war shirt stitched blood red with Spanish dye, a fine striking boy. His father reared him once in the grove of Mars, where Smathus' waters swirl, and a shrine to the gods of Sicily stands, the Palace, quick to forgive, their altar rich with gifts, and he sent his son to war. Mezentius' hissing sling, keeping it strapped taut and dropping his spears 3 times, he whipped it round his head, let fly in the lead shot, sizzling hot in flight, split his enemy's skull, and splayed him out headfirst on a bank of sand. Then, they say, Ascanius shot for the first time in war, the flying arrow he'd saved till now for wild game, routing, terrorizing them. Now his bow hand cut down, strong, numinous, Remulus by family name, just lately bound in marriage to Turnus' younger sister. Numinous, out of the front lines he swaggered, chest puffed up with his newfound royal rank, and he let loose an indiscriminate string of ugly insults, flaunting his own power to high heaven. What, have you no shame? You Phrygians, twice enslaved, penned up twice over inside blockaded ramparts, skulking away from death behind your walls. Look at the heroes who'd seize our brides in battle. What god drove you to Italy? What insanity? No sons of Atreus here, no spinner of tales. Ulysses. We're a rugged stock. From the start we take our young ones down to the river, toughen them in the bitter icy streams. Our boys, they're up all night, hunting, scouring the woods. Their sport is breaking horses, whipping shafts from bows. Our young men, calloused by labor, used to iron rations, tame the earth with mattocks or shatter towns with war. All our lives are honed to the hard edge of steel, reversing our spears we spur our oxen's flanks. No lame old age can cripple our high spirits, sap our vigor, no. We tamp our helmets down on our gray heads, and our great joy is always to haul fresh booty home and live off all we seize. But you, with your saffron braided dress, your flashy purple, you live for lazing, lost in your dancing, your delight. Blowsy sleeves on your war shirts, ribbons on bonnets. Phrygian women, that's what you are, not Phrygian men. Go traipsing over the ridge of Dindima. Catch the songs on the double pipe you dote on so. The tambourines, they're calling for you now, and the boxwood flutes of your Berecyntian mother perched on Ida. Leave the fighting to men. Lay down your swords. Flinging his slander, ranting taunts, Ascanius had enough. Facing him down and aiming a shaft from his bowstring, horse gut, tense, he stood there, stretching both arms wide, praying first to Jove with a fervent, heartfelt vow. Jove Almighty, not assent to the daring work I have in hand. All on my own I'll bring your temple yearly gifts. I'll steady before your altar a bull with gilded brows, bright white with its head, held high as its mother's, budding its horns already, young hoofs kicking sand. And the father heard and thundered on the left from a cloudless sky. The instant the lethal bow sings out and the taut shaft flies through Remulus's head with a vicious hiss and rends his empty temples with its steel. Go on, now mock our courage with high and mighty talk. Here's the reply the Phrygians, twice enslaved, return to you Rutilians. That's all he says. The Trojans echo back with a roar of joy, their spirits sky high. By chance Apollo, god of the flowing hair, enthroned on the cloud, the broad sweeping sky was glancing down, as Asania's troops encamp and calls to Euryalus, flushed with triumph now. Bravo, my boy, bravo, your newborn courage. That's the path to the stars. Son of the gods, you'll father gods to come. All fated wars to come will end in peace, justly, under Assaracus' future sons. Troy can never hold you. In the same breath, the god Apollo dives from the vaulting skies, and cleaving the gusty wind searches for Ascanius. He assumes the form and features of old Butes, armor-bearer, once to Dardan and Anchises, trusty guard of his gates until Aeneas made him Ascanius' aid. So Apollo approached like Butes head to foot, the man's age, his voice, the shade of his skin, white hair, weapons clanging grimly, and counsels Euryalus now in his full glow of triumph. Son of Aeneas, stop. Enough that Numinus fell to your flying shafts, and you've not paid a price. Apollo has granted this, your first flush of glory. He never envied your arrows, a match for the archer's own. For the battles to come, hold back for now, dear boy. The order still in his lips, Apollo vanished from sight into empty air. But the Trojan captains recognized the god, his immortal arms, and heard his arrows rustling in his quiver as he flew. So they restrain Ascanius, blazing for battle, pressing on him Apollo's will and last commands, but they themselves go rushing back to fight and expose their lives to peril. Cries rock the ramparts up and down the walls. their tensing murderous bows, whipping spear straps, weapons strewing the ground, shields and hollow helmets ringing out under impact. Fighting surges, raging strong as a tempest out of the west when the kids are rising great, with rain that lashes the earth, and thick and fast as the hail that storm clouds shower, pelting headlong down on the waves when Jupiter, fierce with south winds, spins a whirlwind, thunderheads exploding down the sky. Pandarus and Bitias, Alcanor of Ida's offspring, born by the nymph Aeria, once in Jupiter's grove, men like pines and peaks of their native land, who trusted so to their swords, they fling wide the gate their captain entrusted to them, all on their own, inviting enemy ranks to breach the walls. There they loom in the gateway, left and right like towers, armed in iron, crests on their high heads flaring, tall as a pair of oaks along a stream in spate, by the Po's banks, or the Adig's lovely waters, rearing their uncropped heads to the high sky, their twin crowns waving tall. But in they charge, the Rutulian forces seeing the way wide open now. In an instant, Quercens, Aquilculus striking in armor, Tamaris, daredevil heart, and Haemon, son of Mars, with all their squadrons routed, turn tail and run, or throw their lives down right at the gateway's mouth. And the more they fight, the hotter their battle fury grows. And now the Trojans mass, regrouping to storm the site, clashing man to man, daring to foray farther out. Turnus, the great captain, is blazing on in another zone, stampeding the Trojan ranks when the news arrives. The enemy, flushed with the latest carnage, offers up their gates flung open now. And Turnus wheels, dropping the task at hand and full of fury, speeds to the Trojan gate to face the headstrong brothers. But first Antiphates, he was the first to charge, Sarpedon's bastard son by a mother born in Thebes. But Turnus cuts him down. His Italian cornel's spear shaft wings through the melting air, and piercing the man's stomach, thrusts up into his chest, and froth from the wound's black pit comes bubbling up as the steel heats in the lung it struck. Then Merops and Aramis die at his hands. Then Aphidnus, even Bitias, eyes ablaze, all rage at heart. And not by a spear, he'd never give up his life to a spear. A massive pike with a giant blade comes hurtling, roaring into him, driven home like a lightning bolt, and neither the two bull's hides of his shield, nor trusty breastplate, double-mailed with its scales of gold, can block its force. His immense limbs collapse, and earth groans as his giant shield thunders down on his body. Huge as a mason pier that falls at times on the shore of Euboean Bay. First they build it of massive blocks, then send it crashing over, dragging all in its wake, and it crushes down on the ocean floor as the waves roil and black sand goes heaving into the air. And Procida Island quakes to its depths, and the craggy bend of Inarima, weighting Tiphys down by Jove's command. Here, Mars, power of war, injects new heart and force in the Latins, twisting his sharp spurs in their chest, and loosing flight and dark fear at the Trojan ranks, and the Latins swarm in from all directions, seize the moment for all-out assault as the war god strikes their spirits. Pandarus, seeing his brother's body spread on the ground and sensing how fortune falls, disaster rules the day. With all his might he rams his massive shoulder into the gate and wheels it shut on its hinges, shuts out many comrades now outside the ramparts, facing an uphill battle, and shuts in many others, ushering fighters home as in they rush, along with himself, the crazy fool. Not to have spotted Turnus charging in with the crowds, and all unwittingly shut him up inside the walls like a claw-mad tiger among some helpless flock. Suddenly strange light flares from Turnus's eyes, and his armor clangs horrific. The blood-red plumes shake on his head, and his shield shoots bolts of lightning. They know him at once, his hated face, his immense frame, and Aeneas' troops are stunned. But enormous Pandarus breaks ranks, afire with rage at his brother's death, and shouts, "No palace here, your dowry from Amata. Look, no fortress Ardea hugging her native Turnus. What you see is your enemy's camp. You can't escape." And Turnus replied with a cool, collected smile, "On with it now. If you have the backbone in you, Let's trade blows. You'll tell the ghost of Priam you found in Achilles, even here. No more talk. Putting all his strength behind it, Pandarus hurls his spear, unpolished, knotted, bark still rough, but the breezes whisk it away. Saturnian Juno flicks aside the approaching wound, and the weapon stabs the gates. But you won't escape my blade, whirling in my right hand, cries Turnus. No, this sword and the man who wields it, the wounds they deal are fatal. Rearing to full height, sword high, the steel hacks the brows, splitting the temples, gruesome wound, and it cleaves the soft, unshaven cheeks. A great crash. Under his huge weight the earth quakes, his limbs fall limp, his armor splattered with brains. He sprawls on the ground in death, in perfect halves, over both his shoulders, right and left. His head goes lolling free. The Trojans swerve and scatter in panic, and if the conquering hero had thought at once of smashing the gate bolts, letting his cohorts in, this day would have been the last day of the war. The last of the Trojans, too. But Turnus' hot fury, his mad lust for carnage, drives him against his foes. First he seizes Phalerus, cuts the knees from under Gyges. Snatching their spears, he whips them into the backs of men, who break and run as Juno builds his courage, his warlust. Halus next. He sends him packing along with comrades. Phagius too, as a spear impales him through his shield. Then men on the ramparts keen for combat. Blind to Turnus, who picks them off. Alcander and Halius, Pritnus and Naaman. Lynceus swings to attack, shouting his comrades on. But first, from the right-hand rampart, Turnus spins with one stroke of his dazzling sword close up that brings down Lynceus, slashes his head off, head and helmet tumbling far away. Next he brings down Amycus, gifted killer of wild game. No hand more skilled at dipping an arrow's point or capping a lance with poison than Clytius, Aeolus' son. Then Cretheus, friend of the Muses comrade Cretheus, always dear to his heart the song and lyre, tuning a verse to the taut string, always singing of cavalry, weapons, wars, and the men who fight them. At last the Trojan captains hear of the massacre of their troops. Mnestheus, fierce Serestus both come rushing in, and seeing their ranks in panic, ranks of enemies lodged inside the gates, Mnestheus shouts out, "Where are you heading? Where are you flying now? What other walls, what other ramparts have you got? My countrymen, can one man, penned up in your fortress on all sides, spread such slaughter throughout the city? Send such a rout of first-rate fighters down to death and never pay the price? You feckless craven, have no pity? No shame for your wretched land, your gods of old, for great Aeneas?" That ignites them, stiffens their spine, and closing ranks they halt, as Turnus pulls back from the melee, heading step by step for the banks where the river rings the camp. All the more fiercely Trojans swarm him, war cries breaking, ranks packed tight as a band of huntsmen bristling spears, attacking a savage lion. Terrified, true, but glaring still. Ferocious still as he backs away, but his heart, his fury keep him from turning tail. Yet for all his wild desire, he still can't claw his way through spears and huntsmen. Just so torn, so slowly but surely Turnus backs away, his spirit churning with anger. Twice he charged the thick of his foes. Twice he broke their lines, stampeding the Trojans down their walls at speed. But a whole battalion marching out of the camp comes massing hard against him. Not even Juno dares reinforce his power to counterattack. No, Jove sped Iris down from the high heavens, winging strict commands for his sister Juno, if Turnus did not quit the Trojans' looming walls. So now no shield, no sword arm helps the fighter stand up under the onslaught, overpowering salvus battering down on him left and right. Over and over the helmet casing his hollow temples rings out shrill. The solid bronze of it splits wide open under the rocks. The plumes are ripped from his head. The boss of his shield caves in to the hammering blows. And the Trojan ranks, with lightning bolt Mnestheus out in the lead, unleash an immense barrage of spears, and sweat goes rippling over Turnus' entire body, rivering down, black with filth. Can't catch his breath, gasping, weak knees quaking, bone tired, until at last he dives head first, plunging into the river, armor and all, and Tiber swept him into its yellow tide, catching him as he came, then bore him up in its soothing waves, and bathing away the carnage, gave the elated fighter back to friends.